Welcome to Angels, Positivity and Love. I'm your host, Michael Andre Ford in San Antonio, Texas. Today we have a very special guest from Colorado, Amy Stark. I'd like to welcome you on board.
Thank you. I'm so excited to be here.
Well, thanks for coming on. And Amy's one of my most favorite people, super fun, tons of energy, and she's got a lot of experience as a healer. She's a show host. She's in Louisville, Colorado. And let's hear from Amy generically. Before we get into intros, let's hear about angels from her. Amy, do angels exist?
Yes. I'll tell you my favorite story. So, my sisters were all going to a movie, and it was raining, and I was driving, and actually we were on our way from the movie. And when we were driving, there was a lot of traffic, but then all of a sudden it started downpouring, and I was trying to gauge, like where all the cars were and how much rain was coming down. And I all of a sudden just knew that we were going to hit the cars in front of us, because I got a split second of a vision, because the windshield wipers finally cleaned, and I was like, and then all of a sudden I felt angels on all sides of the car, because I had all my sisters in the car. So I have 3 sisters. So I was like, oh my gosh, I'm like, this is really, really bad. And then all of a sudden there was this tiny space between 2 cars that I aimed for. And we came out the other side, and all of us were like, how did we make it through that? We had no idea how. Like, the only thing that I knew, and this was even before I started getting into energy work and everything, I sensed the angels on the sides. We had to have gone through like a time warp or something. It makes no sense why we didn't crash into these other cars, and probably would have been a couple of cars. So that was definitely one of my first encounters with angels.
Wow. Wow. Okay. You're a healer, and there's a long journey you've taken, a lot of self-healing, a lot of illness in the past, stuff like that. Before we get to that, when did you know you had some gifts? Tell us about being a twin, and tell us about your family. I think you said you have 6. Like, there's 6 of you, brothers, sisters. We got a clue. There's 4 sisters, I believe.
Well, there's 4 girls, 2 boys, and a big family. So it was a lot of fun, and it was a lot of chaos. And that's one of the reasons why I got really good at sensing energy. It was because I was always trying to figure out where everybody was emotionally, what was a safe room to go into. I also was being bullied at the time by my brother. And he's my older brother. And it was just like, I was like, oh gosh, is he over there? Is he going to be mean to me? So I was sensing that kind of stuff a lot. And you asked me something right before that. It wasn't like being a twin. So I have a twin sister, and so we're in the middle of 6 kids. And as you can imagine, having 6 kids, you just basically, especially back in the 80s, it was like the kids weren't supposed to talk. They weren't supposed to share like their thoughts on anything, because it was just like, at least in my family, it was like, come on, this is a tight ship that we're running, and so I just never talked, really. I basically didn't voice my opinion because it wasn't going to go anywhere. And then I was sharing the middle spotlight with my twin sister, who was much cuter and more extroverted, and just would like to sing, and everybody would be paying attention to her, and I'm like, whatever, it's fine, she can be in the spotlight. So I never really wanted to be in the spotlight, and that's why it's so unusual that I have a podcast now, that I do public speaking. I suffered with a stutter for a long time. Thankfully I mostly corrected that. It was never something that I had on my radar. I thought I was going to be a science teacher, and I was going to have kids and be married, and that would be my life, basically.
Cool. Well, we're going to get to your background in just a second. And for those listening, at starttransformation.com, the Start Transformation Show has been around for a while. She's got a lot of episodes. I've been on that show. We'll talk about that in a little bit.
We had so much fun.
Yeah. Tell us, if you're a listener out there and you're kind of peeking at your website, starttransformation.com, STARK. This is Amy Stark on. What does a person come to you with if they're stuck, and what can they expect you to do on their behalf? And if I'll take a shot at it for 20 seconds or less, you're, total psychic healer. You'll do their listening, touch the sky for them. You'll get an assessment of their situation and help out. But now take over and tell us what you do.
Right. So a lot of people think that healers heal other people, right? Because that's what it sounds like. But really, what healers do is they remove what is in the way of the person being their best and greatest self. So that's what I do with whoever comes to me. It really doesn't matter what you're suffering from. It could be stage fright, it could be fear of flying, it could be an illness, it could be chronic illness, it could be grief, the loss of a loved one, a divorce, anything, trying to step into your purpose, your power. So what I help people to do is go through their story of the history of their life, and really, because of my gifts, I can see the significant moments in their lives that caused them to shift in a direction that really wasn't of their highest and best good. Now, it was probably to protect them. So that's what they've been doing, is protecting themselves. But unfortunately, like for instance, when we're younger, we make assumptions about the world to protect ourselves, so, and we're doing it pretty quickly because we're young and we're trying to figure things out. There's a lot to figure out. But when we're 40 years old and we're trying to like step into our power and try to get this new job, we won't do that if we, let's say, we're on the playground at 7 years old and we're thinking we're all, hot, cool, whatever. Are we allowed to swear?
Yeah, yeah. I mean,
Okay.
YouTube, so not too much.
SHIT. Okay. Well, yeah, not too much. I'll try to curb my language. But anyway, so you're like, okay, I'm 7 years old. I'm feeling really good. I'm going to do the monkey bars, and everybody's going to think I'm so cool, and I'm going to take the risk. And then all of a sudden you fall and everybody laughs at you. So like, if that happened and then you're 40 years old and then you're like, oh, I can't take this risk at work. Everybody's going to laugh at me. I'm going to make a fool of myself. Sometimes that can be playing in to, our future. So I really help people go to the past to heal it and then move to the future, because what we're doing is we're not like erasing the memory of, let's say, falling down, from the monkey bars and everybody laughing at you. What we're doing is we're changing how the nervous system remembers that event. You were young, like it was slippery out and you probably knew that you shouldn't do it, like because it was, let's say, mid-December and there was some ice on it, and so we start to realize, oh, that's the truth of that situation, and I was trying to show off. I went too far, like I was trying to make it look like I was a superhero when I really am not. You know what I mean? Like
Yeah,
you
yeah.
start to remember the truth because your nervous system calms down. So that's what I do, is I try to find the stories in their past that are holding them back from feeling better. Now, here's the interesting thing. It's not just one event that happens. So let's say they fall in the monkey bars in front of all their friends, and then it's 2 years later that's time to give a presentation at school, and then they're getting like sweaty and they can't figure out like what they're going to say in front of the class, and then it all just like drains out of their head. I mean, who doesn't have that happen to them? So then they get up in front of the class and they just stand there like it, they don't know anything that they're supposed to say. And even though they rehearsed and everything, so now they start to distrust themselves, right? Because they're like, I knew this stuff and now I don't. And now I look like an idiot. I thought I could do this and I can't. So it's a lot of those kind of things that kind of create a neural network and a way of seeing the world that then creates this person at 40 something years old that doesn't want to take that next step. But if you can just unwind that stuff and release the energy that's in the nervous system that's telling them this is dangerous, this is unsafe, then you can heal the body, because then the body takes over, the natural healing ability, with source, God, the universe heals the body because it's now in rest, digest, and heal instead of fight or flight. And that's the difference.
And it's a little bit like an athlete, like a gymnast, in terms of if you train enough, your body just knows what to do. So
Right.
instead of the ripple effect, the resonance, all the other lingo, the
Yeah.
body
I,
knows how to move past the situation.
yeah, that's what I wanted to say. So not only do I help them rewind and release that kind of stuff, I teach them the tools to do it on their own, because honestly, when people have their breakdowns, like it can be in the middle of the night and, I'm not available, or whatever, people aren't around to talk to. So they have to be able to handle things themselves. So I give them the tools to do that. But I also help them to shift their mindset and give them some tools and books and, ways of up leveling their energy so that they can have high energy. And so that if something does happen, it just maybe knocks them down a peg and then they can get back up and then they have this high level of energy again, so they can tackle, the world, or, as, if you will.
And your website is so organized. It's really easy to look at, easy on the eyes, but you have
Oh,
great
thank you.
options. Yeah, and your shows as well. How many shows is it? 167 or something? What is it?
Well, we're up to like 177, I think.
Okay, so a lot of shows, a lot of material, but a lot of good stuff comes out. So I recommend folks get over there to the Amy Stark Show, and
No,
this
no,
stuff
no,
will
the
be
Stark
all over
Transformation
the
Show.
Stark. Sorry, yeah, the Stark
That's
Transformation.
okay.
Hey, I'm gonna blow some sage your way. Let's
Sounds
shift
good.
gears again. So we did this before the show already, so we know it works. And she's done this before.
Oh, it's amazing.
For the audience, I'm not kidding how much of a powerhouse Amy is. Good cheer. It doesn't mean life is always unicorns, rainbows, and smiles and sparkles,
Right.
but it is when you want to pay attention to that.
Oh, I already got it. I already got it.
And I'm only just lighting it, so I'm
I know.
gonna
Oh
say,
my gosh! Wow.
yeah, the smoke was
Woo.
making me choke just
Yeah,
in
that
the
was
middle of
making me
the
choke.
recording.
Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah, yeah.
because
That's
it's
funny.
powerful stuff. Now we're
Oh wow.
linear, so for the audience members who are just like, whoa, what are they doing? They're blowing smoke through two screens from
Yeah.
San Antonio to Louisville, Colorado, just outside of Boulder. Um, Give yourself permission to let go. That's a first step for anything: going for a walk, having a great bath, reading a book, hugging your dog, walking your dog, and not viewing it as a task. And ask angels, the universe, whichever lingo way you roll, to bring the smoke to you. It's just sage. You can get it at Whole Foods. This is Juniper Ridge. I'm not sponsored.
Woo.
And we're linear, so we usually just smell it, taste it in the mouth first. Done this on a lot of shows. A lot of people have done this. No big deal. A lot of audience members type in and say, "Hey, I just smelled it," even though it's a week later that they're seeing it. But go non-linear. Ask angels to bring it to you up and down your back. Send it to your dog who's got arthritis. Ask
Yeah.
it to go around your house and clear the space. You don't have to walk. I mean, walk around the house with sage, clearing, throw a window open, but you can also go non-linear in a heartbeat.
Hmm.
And I'll get a piece of ash off my keyboard. Yay. I'm going to stub this out and not smoke myself out here. So the one thing I'm going to say, having just done this, is if there are no limits in life, maybe there are really no limits. And we're going to get to your background in just a second, but taking the no limits concept, or sky's the limit, or somebody just said the other day in a Facebook post, the stars are the limit, just to blow out the sky. Why don't you run with that for 1 second? That's awfully positive. It's awfully glib, but show us how, if we'll just allow more in life, stuff happens. Tell us about that.
So you're asking, how can we be more in receiving mode?
Yeah. How can we let the universe do its job? How can we get out of our own way? You help people do that all the time.
Yeah,
We get
yeah.
stuck again. 1 week we get cleared, we run around, we're like, oh my God, I feel very liberated. 1 week
Right.
later, we're hit by a garbage truck of stuff, situations,
Right,
work,
right, right.
stress. Yeah. How do we
Well,
handle all this stuff?
yeah, one thing that you can always do is say, how is this happening for me rather than happening to me? So it's a big transition to make. Sometimes, sometimes you're like, I just want to be angry. And I do agree that you should have your grief and process those emotions. But when you feel ready, asking yourself, how is this happening for me rather than happening to me, turns on your parasympathetic nervous system, which is going to help you to rest, digest, and heal. But that is receiving mode. So your brain is a goal achieving machine, and it will go out and find the answers of how this is happening for you. And so you wind up actually seeing how the universe is supporting you rather than, messing with you. I
Cool.
gotta be really watching my language.
No, you're good. You're good. But say it one other way. We're at a cocktail party and you want to say exactly what you just said in an even more simplified way. So an audience member who maybe is driving and only listening can get it. We get in situations and we think stuff actually is just happening to us. But
Right.
explain to us how it's really buying ourselves some breathing space to allow for some change to come in.
Yes, exactly. And so I'm a fan of radical responsibility for your life. So if things are happening that aren't like your favorite thing that's happening, I like to see where my role is in creating that, right? Because if I am the creator of my story when it's good, why am I not the creator of my story when it's bad, right? That's a little, that's not fair, right? So I take radical responsibility. I say, if it's good and I'm creating it, great, I'll take ownership for that. And if it's bad, I'll also take ownership. I'll see, what did I miss? wasn't I looking at? Where are the red flags like that I missed or whatever? How did I end up in this spot? What do I need to clear? So like I said, when I work with people, I give them the tools. One of the tools is EFT. So that's emotional freedom technique. So when I teach them that, they have a tool to release the programming they might find, like, because when we make that shift of how's this happening for me, you then see the truth of your situation, or at least you're starting to see the truth and you're starting to see patterns. So you might be like, if you're like me, I love patterns. I'm like, okay, so that person, it seems like this person, and that happened with that person, that happened with that person, and then it happened with this person. So I start to see, oh, okay, I'm somehow attracting this situation into my life. How can I avoid doing that again, right?
Sure. Sure.
And that's the way the universe works, is they first send you like a pebble and then a rock and then a boulder. So you definitely want to avoid it when it's a boulder. So the more that we can become aware of our thoughts and the aware of the patterns that are happening in our life, or the ways in which we get stuck, the sooner we can get to creating the life that we really want, which is, from our truth, not our trauma. So we wind up seeing when we don't clear that stuff, we're living our life from our trauma, trying to protect ourselves.
I like it. I like
So
it. I think it's
yeah,
Pema Chodron said, "Nothing really ever goes away until you've learned the lesson."
right.
Yeah, I
Exactly. So
love
I
that.
always am looking for the lesson. I'm like, let's move through this. Like I'm all down for it. Sometimes the lessons can be hard, and I thankfully know people to help me through them. I have tools, I have techniques. I mean, I still go through stuff. I mean, I'm still human. I still have, even though I have a lot of awareness about things, I can speak to people who've crossed over. I can talk to angels. A lot of things. I still, am just trying to figure it all out the best I can as I'm going through life.
Well, everything I've seen, you've been doing a great job paying attention. You flow your energy really well. You're combat effective. And I'm going to mention that, in a way, exactly kung fu. The game of life is definitely about figuring out how not to waste so much energy. You're going to waste energy all the time. And that's thinking
Right.
is what I call it, the stuff from the neck up, stressing, fear, worry, reaction, whatever. But if you can, and I'm going to quote angels here, there's very little that's original for me. 7% less thinking a week is what I was given as a great formula from a bunch of angels that can help put us in that hot spot. Like if it's a tennis racket, the zone in the center, the sweet spot.
Yeah, I definitely agree. Yeah.
Yeah.
Listen, here's the thing. If we were not uncomfortable, we wouldn't change. So being uncomfortable has to come along at some point so that we can figure out what we truly want, right? Because we're like, well, I definitely don't want that now. So what is it that I do want? And then, if you have the mindsets, the tools, the techniques, then you can figure out what you want, and then you can start designing it.
The emotional weather vane.
Right. Exactly.
Hey,
Yeah.
so I'm stuck. I got three things going on. I'm in the middle of a divorce. I'm not liking my job. I'm discovering maybe I'm more sensitive than I realized. There is something to all this Jedi stuff, the woo woo woo, the spiritual. I watched a program the other day. I actually felt goosebumps. Something happened, but I don't know how to sort all this out. I'm okay just coming to you with that, and you'll help triage me, tell me I'm okay, help encourage me, help me release what needs to be released.
Yes. So here's the funny thing. A lot of the times, so what I do is before I work with a client, what I do is I convene with their higher self. So, and God and angels and all that. Like I have all that energy around. I get a download of like, what is the main theme in your life that you're struggling with, right? And a lot of the times it is the same theme through all the things that you're going through. And it's amazing how, if our human mind can look at these things and be like, those are totally separate. And I even think that myself. I'm like, how is this like related? And then if you ask the higher self will say, this is what it is. And then you start to work to unwind all those things. And then the top belief is the one that needs to go, that hasn't been serving you. And you can, here's the beauty of what happens. Yeah. So
Yeah.
you get that top belief, everything else starts to dissipate and fix itself. But then when this is gone, your original truth can now fill in that space and heal your whole space and body. So this is, you're getting reconnected with who you really are. The best way to describe it is, um we all are by the time we get to like 30s, 40s, 50s, we're sort of like a light bulb that has a lot of dust on it. And every time that we do this like thinking or healing on ourselves, we're just wiping away some of the dust so we can get brighter and brighter and brighter about who we really are. Because circumstances and things happen. We have families that are screwed up when we come into this world. Like, people are not very nice all the time. Things can happen. We give a presentation, we pee our pants, and then that's like mess us up for 10 years. Like things happen. So what we want to do is we want to heal those things so that the real true us comes through.
And that's a Buddhist metaphor, the whole clearing of the dust. That's the metaphor for the clutter.
Oh,
Where it's our own thinking generated, it accumulates, it becomes like Samsonite luggage that we carry around on our
it's
back
true.
without even knowing it. So,
Joe Dispenza says most of the time we don't remember the past accurately, and then most of the time we're reliving that because we're always stuck in there, and so we're reliving a past that is not something that we enjoyed anyway. So why even go there? So it's 50% wrong anyway. So just start, letting that stuff go. Let go of the Samsonite baggage. Create the life that you really want and move forward from your heart. That's the thing, is most of us are we're trained out of our heart into our head, and we need to go from our head to our hearts. And then always check in, like, see if it feels right here
yep.
in your heart. Check in with your head afterwards. That makes a lot of sense. But we are definitely far too much in our head, and our brain unfortunately will lie to us a lot. And here's how it lies to us. It's talking to us from our trauma. It's trying to keep us safe. So if we heal that stuff, then we start to actually be more in alignment with what we really want. You'll see. We keep
Interesting.
talking.
And what we really want, we really don't get to. There's a lot of ways, there's thousands of ways, a million ways not to focus on what would make us truly happy, or just being ourselves and then experiencing ourselves as we do stuff is probably a better way to say it. It's not really external. The more we cultivate our own authentic presence, our self, the more we begin to enjoy everything. Even the stuff that we would have found unpleasant a week ago can be at least moderately, I don't know, expanding somehow. Let's shift though. In a second, we're going to cover, hey, when did you first like figure out something was up? Were you communicating with your sister, the twin across
Yeah.
the country? She turns out she's a little bit intuitive, a lot, not at all. You'll let us know. But first, tell us one more angel story, like you're wheeling and dealing besides just helping people, which isn't besides helping people, you've got skills. Tell us more about interacting with angels. That time you tipped the cow in the field and an angel was like, don't do it. The cow's you're just exactly.
That did not happen.
Tell us another war story if you would.
So, here, I'll just say this. Sometimes I get so focused on helping other people on their journey that I forget to ask for the help for myself. And one night I was laying in bed and I'm like, gosh, I just need to get better. Like, what can I do to get better? And then I was like, let me ask the angels for help. So as soon as I asked for angels to come and help me while I was trying to get well, I looked at the end of my bed at my feet, and there was an angel in a nurse's like, kind of costume, like old, like a 1920s kind of nurse's outfit. And I was like, oh yeah, cool. Thanks. I'm going to sleep. It was kind of just like I forgot, and I think that we all do forget that we have that support, that we can ask for the guidance, for the help from them.
I know
So
if it
yeah.
had happened to me 10 or 11 years ago, I would have been up right out of bed. I always went to my kitchen every time I panicked. I do circles in my kitchen. This is probably like 2010, 2011, 2012. I'd be like in Austin, Texas at the time. I'd be like, what did I just see? What did I just see? And I keep going like a fish in a goldfish bowl for 5 minutes out loud saying,
Oh
what
my
did I
gosh.
just see?
I would
Real
love to have
slow
seen
poke.
that.
Oh my God. I
Yeah.
am the slowest poke in the West for the uptake, and I help everyone else look more mature. When they do something, it takes them 5 seconds, seeing, smelling, hearing, feeling, getting an answer. They don't understand how long it took for me to get comfortable with the concept. So for those listening right now, it really is much easier. Go to an analogy of driving your car. When you were a kid, you were excited about it for 2 weeks. You jangled the keys. You told everybody you were going for a drive. You wanted to see if somebody went with you. You wanted to let everybody know you're going for a drive. But now flash forward, let's say you're 35, stuck in traffic in LA. most of us are cursing, thinking negatively about the whole thing. Very few of us are like, ooh, pretty red-tailed hawk as you're stuck in traffic. So my point of this is it might seem novel. A lot of these concepts might seem like either they couldn't apply to you, maybe they apply to you, you're not sure, your fear is kicking in, you're judging, you're worried, but trust us. And especially when you hear Amy's stories, her past, what she's been through, what she's seen, trust us that it's all not even within your grasp, it's all right here. Just check out of the words the structure, follow her vibe even more than the words, and let her bring you somewhere. And with that, tell us, when did you first notice your gifts kicking in? Was it in the middle of high school, one of your
Oh
exams?
gosh.
No.
I wish. I really wish. I would say that the first time that I knew for sure something was up, was when I was meditating. It was very early on. So, and I wasn't meditating for like to become psychic or anything like that. This was definitely not on the docket for me as far as I knew. And, so probably was a couple months in, and I'm sitting there meditating in my Brooklyn apartment with my coffee because that's how I did it. I would have coffee while I meditated. Some people say you can't do that. I disagree. Yes, I have it too. Right over here. So I closed my eyes to meditate, and then all of a sudden, thoughts come in your head, and so my sister popped into my head. So I was like, oh, I wonder how Sarah's doing. And then all of a sudden, my eyes started burning. And I opened my eyes and I'm like, "Ooh, wow, that's weird." So then I close my eyes and it starts burning again. And I'm like, who was the last person I thought of? And it was Sarah. And so that's my twin sister. And so I call her up. She's in North Carolina. And I'm like, "Hey, Sarah, like, how you doing?" And she's like, "Oh, did you talk to mom? I have a double pink eye infection." And I was like, whoa, that's what it felt like. It felt like I had sand in my eyes. And so then I'm like, that's weird. But then I was like, well, we're twins. When we were little, we used to communicate mostly through telepathy. We would put a couple of words in there every once in a while, and my mom would get so frustrated because she'd be like, "What are you talking about?" Because we'd say a couple of words, and then we'd start laughing, and my mom would be like, "What are you talking about?" My mom would be like, "What do you want for dinner?" And we just like look at her like, "Okay, I'm sending it to you." Uh, and she'd be like, "And it is," so anyway, so maybe it was intuition and I could feel when her heart was hurting, like meaning she broke up with a boyfriend or whatever. We would call each other and be like, "Oh my gosh, I can feel you're not doing so hot." But then the next day I'm sitting there and I'm meditating again and I close my eyes and all of a sudden my jaw starts hurting. And I'm like, "Oh, shoot, I gotta go to the dentist." And, so I open my eyes and I'm like, "Wait, my mouth isn't hurting anymore." So I close my eyes again and my jaw starts hurting again. I'm like, "Oh my gosh, it's a tooth back here." So I like locate the tooth and I'm like, "Who was the last person I was just thinking of?" And it was my dad. So my dad at the time, I never would call and be like, "Is your mouth hurting you?" But I called my mom and I was like, "Hey mom, how's dad doing?" And she's like, "Oh, he's at the dentist right now. He bit down on a walnut last night and broke his tooth." So I'm like, what is going on here? I'm like, I'm accidentally connecting with people and feeling their pain. And then I'm like, I don't want this. I'm just trying to meditate to like de stress. And all of a sudden, I'm feeling pain in other people's bodies. And I'm like, okay, I've got to stop this, until I can understand what the purpose of me being so sensitive is and how to like turn it on, turn it off, and use it as a tool versus think that I need to go to the dentist when I don't, or think that I have pink eye and I don't. So that was really the first time where I was like, you know what? And then it just kept coming. They piled it on. It was like one thing after another for me. And like I said, I was not looking for this, but I always stayed curious because I was like, there has to be something to this. There has to be a reason why I was able to connect with my sister in North Carolina, my dad in New Jersey, and me in Brooklyn. And then I started being able to see how real estate deals were going to go down and like who was going to show up and how much it was going to cost to buy something and what the renters or buyers were going to look like, what the house will look. I mean, it was insane. And so I was like, this is too this is a lot of information. So then I was like, well, maybe I go down that path and become like a real estate mogul, right? You know, I can figure all this stuff out. And I'm like, no, that's not it. I'm like, why would I still feel pain in people's bodies? Like there has to be something I can do with that. So, and then I started realizing if I close my eyes and I focused on somebody's body who asked me to read their energy, I like, cause that's what I started doing, was taking some healing courses. And then I started seeing, oh, there's this wrong in your body and that wrong. And, you know, like, have you talked to a doctor about this? And then I was like, you know what? I don't want to do that. I don't want to, I'm not a doctor, so I couldn't really use that medical intuition in a way that felt right to me. So then I kept going. I kept studying and learning, and spirits would start to come through. And then I thought, oh, I'm a medium. So I have a really cool story about that. And I'm trying to see if I have the book ready.
Who was the author?
It's a medium. Darn it. I used to have it right here. I'm sure it's in this room.
And I was just going to ask you, if somebody out there wanted to get a recommendation from you, like you mentioned Joe Dispenza, do you love Joe Dispenza? You'd want to go to one of his beach retreats in Mexico, or are there some other authors, experts out there that you think are pretty not standard? They're incredible, but who would you recommend?
Oh, here, I found the book. Hold on one second.
Okay. And we're getting a book that Amy loves. That's good starter book, or a good medium starter book.
Okay, sorry, what'd you say?
Oh, I was just telling the audience we're getting a book that could help a person develop their intuition.
Well, so here's the funny thing. So here's the book. And so I got this book because I was walking through New York City, and I had a few minutes to spare, and I was like, you know, I've been wondering if I'm supposed to be a medium because they've been coming through, and I need to develop that skill if that's what I'm going to be doing. And so I literally at that time in my life, I was asking God to tell me, am I supposed to be a medium? Am I supposed to talk to people who've crossed over? And I walk into this book fair, and there's like so many books, and I'm like, I don't have enough time to go through all these books and find something. So I was like, Spirit, highlight what book you want me to take home with me that is important to me. So I see a beam of light, I go to it, and I find this book is underneath it. And I'm like, oh, cool. I'm like, I've been wondering if I'm a medium, and this is the book. And then I'm like, oh, I hear there's a message in there for you. And I'm like, oh, cool. Okay. So I open up the book, and I'm like looking to see in the front few cover, you know, like, you know, first few pages, is there, you know, something that says Dear Amy or something like that. I'm like, that's silly. I mean, Amy, you're getting ridiculous here. So I'm like, okay, maybe the message is just embedded in the book. So I take it home. I'm reading it. I have my iPod on my meditation music. I'm reading the book. And then all of a sudden out pops a note. And in the note, it's right here. It says, Dear Amy, right? This gently read book is not really your gift. So, meaning the message was, mediumship is not really your gift, and not was underlined. And it's so for me, so it says, fearing you may, I'll read the rest of the note just so you know. So it says, fearing you may have already read this, I added something else. If you notice there is a hole in one of the last pages, we have given you a subscription to John Edwards' newsletter. Love, Sage, Eddie, Ed, Andy, and Kate. so these
either
are all
somebody in Iowa or angels up above, or both.
Yeah. So I get this book, and I'm like, okay, I guess that's not the direction I'm supposed to go. And so for me, it was a lot of trying to figure out, like, how do I use these gifts in the highest and best way? And I work for, you know, the big guy, or if you will. um and and so I realized over time, oh, all these things help me to heal, or help heal the person who's in front of me. Like I can use these gifts to help get out of the way what is not serving them anymore. You know, obviously with their permission, they're right there. You know, we talk about it. I say, okay, this is what's coming up, blah, blah, blah. And then sometimes a spirit does come in and say, hey, this is intergenerational trauma. Like this happened one time where my client was wanting to step into her purpose and start her new business, and she was afraid that she was just going to get sick. And she's like, I don't know why. She's like, I don't know why I'm going to get sick, and I'm like really sick. And so I start talking to the person who had crossed over, and sure enough, that person had started their business, and then the building, it was a carpet business, the building burned down,
Yep.
and uh and then they got really sick because they got so stressed out about the money and everything and how they were going to recover, and then they died. So this was intergenerational trauma that was passed down to her. And so I was like, this is not even yours. Are you okay if we release this? So that's how the mediumship can help. Sometimes they come through and it's just a loved one just saying how much they love that person. You know, like I just recently I got overwhelmed with a spirit who had crossed over, and it was a brother, and he just went like, you know, that's my boy, you know, because he loved the his brother so much. And I start immediately start to cry because the love, and the same thing with angels. When they show up, I immediately start to cry, because their presence is so beautiful and so pure and so high vibe that it actually shakes tears out of my body. Like I actually lose my breath for a second, and I become overwhelmed with the beauty of it.
Hey, now
It's
when I went on
incredible.
your show back in the fall, you weren't crying, but you did have an angel experience. Tell us about one of at least, I think, a few things that happened. Again, I was on Amy, the Stark Transformation show in the fall, and Amy literally, it was, she's a great veteran show host, but she lost it for a second and was
And
seeing something over my shoulder.
oh, yeah, I do vaguely remember that. Yeah, so because the thing is it happens, you know, when you're a medium, you can see angels, and I did lose my breath, and I did start to tear up. But I don't remember the message. I do remember the other angel that was being funny and saying, "Be like Mike, the cereal," or
Life
I like my,
cereal, the
the life
commercial.
cereal.
Mikey
Yeah,
likes it.
yeah, Mikey likes it. Yeah, with the cereal. I'm like, why am I seeing you eating cereal? And then you were like, oh yeah, Mikey Life. I'm like, oh, that's hilarious, because that's what the cereal that I used to eat when I was a kid. A Life cereal. You're eating
Yeah, that
Life.
commercial ruined it
Is
for all the mics out there
I
for
know,
a
right?
bunch of years. Yes. Okay. So if you had to recommend 3 or 4 starter authors you think are safe, fun, upbeat, who, it doesn't have to be 3 or 4. It could be a movie. What do you recommend for folks to sink their
I definitely recommend the Four Agreements always, hands down. It's written by Don Miguel Ruiz, and they're ways to live your life so you're happier for sure. And then Dave Asprey, he's got a lot of great information on how you can biohack your body so that you are having the most resilience that you can have with your energy in your body. So like little hacks or tweaks can really make a huge difference. Like I'm all about like what are the little things that we can do to have a huge impact for the transformation. So he's the father of biohacking. So any one of his books are going to probably be amazing. He just keeps coming out with books, so it's hard to keep track of all of them, but how to upgrade your body energy, your brain. I started wearing blue blocking glasses at night. And so they're like a red tint. And when you're watching TV, it kind of gives a little bit of a red tint, but that signals to your brain that the sun is setting and it's time to relax, instead of the blue light that's coming from the TV, which then keeps you awake and alert. So that had a huge impact on my deep sleep. So that's just one way that you can just I put them right next to the chair that I watch TV. I just pop them on. I don't even notice it anymore. Sometimes I'm like, wait, what's on the screen? Like I just want to make sure I'm seeing it properly. So I'll tip it for a second and then I put it back down. But and then I obviously, when you cover your windows, with the blackout curtains, that helps your mitochondria to repair itself and get deeper sleep. And then I sleep with a chili pad. So like and then here I have a infrared sauna. There's just little things that you can do. I use these PIMs, to relax. They're just like, they give me, relax and focus energy because they're giving me the neurotransmitters that I need in order to do that. So there's so
So
many things.
biohacking's all over your website as well. It's not
Yeah.
just energy work, but biohacking things, shortcuts you can take nutritionally and other methods to kind of help smooth your path out for you.
Yeah. Here's the analogy. Like if you're going to go on a long journey, right? you're going to need snacks. You're going to need the right coat. You're going to need maybe some layers. You're going to need water. You're going to need all these things. Maybe you're going to be taking a car with you. Maybe you're going to be staying somewhere. So you're going to want to map out that journey, and you're going to want to have all the tools and techniques to sustain you through that whole journey. This is a journey. Being on earth is a journey, and you need a lot of help. And so, like, for instance, I have rose spray right here. Rose spray is very high vibrational, and actually stop and smell the roses is a thing. It turns on your parasympathetic nervous system. It's very high vibration and clears your energy. Like, when you know these tools, you can just use them at will. Like, I have electrolytes in my water because it helps to enhance my electrical field, you know? So it doesn't have to be so hard once you learn these things, you know? It can be really hard when you're in the dark, and that's actually why I do what I do, because I did have a dark night of the soul. I've had a couple, but I've had a really dark night of the soul, which is what spurred me on to meditation.
Is this the back injury? Is this going from science teacher to healing? Tell us, give us some flavor, but explain how it became your foundation to be able to launch forward doing what you do as a healer for others in that context.
So, here's what happened. I was working in the New York City public school system, and I had graduated from Syracuse University with a psychology degree because I love the mind.
Both
And
my parents went to Syracuse, go Orange.
right, yes, that's right.
Yes.
I remember that. And I had a blast. And but really, why? So I went there to be a science teacher, right? And I started taking psychology class, and I'm like, this is so fascinating. And I was able to like analyze my own self while I was there, and my family and the interactions that I had had. So I just kept taking more and more classes. And then at the end of the 4 years, I was like, uh-oh, I'm getting a psychology degree, but like I wanted to be a science teacher. And then I'm like, there's got to be a way to do this. Because at the time, I did not want to go into therapy, like meaning becoming a therapist. So I felt like it was not a complete process. And what I recently found out from Greg Braden, he was teaching something, and he said that there's actually a neural network in your heart that needs to be addressed if you've experienced some sort of trauma. So, like, we can talk through it through our head, but until we connect, and I've known this intuitively, but like hearing him talk about the scientific part of it was pretty cool. So, I knew it wasn't a complete process because the things that happen to us are actually stored in our tissues and in our body, and it actually is still connected to the brain. But until we release those things, we're going to feel stuck, and we're going to get caught up in this loop. And a lot of times therapy, while it can be helpful, can also traumatize, re-traumatize you, because you're going over and over and over again the same thing. So you can feel helpless, or you can feel like you're not getting out of that situation. So anyway, so I was like, I don't want to do that. It's not a complete process. Didn't know why. So I thankfully joined the New York City Teaching Fellows program. I got accepted into it because they were trying to find people outside of teaching to become teachers, because they were trying something new, which I think probably failed, but I'm not sure. I was just part of that group. So anyway, so unfortunately though, they stuck me in one of the most dangerous schools in New York City, without any tools, and at 22 years old, like super green. And I was getting my master's degree paid for, which was really cool. I was like, okay, so I'll get a master's in education while I'm doing this. And it was so hard. It taxed every part of me. I was my life was threatened often by the students. It was pretty sad, and I was giving it my all, right? So here I am thinking, I came from the mentality of like, you just respect teachers, like that's what you do. You respect adults. Did not work like that with them. They were like, no, you have to earn my respect. And I'm like, well, how do I do that? Like, I'm just here trying to teach you science. And they're like, we don't care about science. Like, the kids that were there were classified with emotional disturbances, and they were all in one building. So they were fighting to survive their lives, really. There was security guards on every floor. There was a whole security process that they had to go through before they entered the building. They used to toss their weapons underneath the cars, and also check them in at the bodegas that were local so that they could then pick them up before they went home and still be safe. There was a lot of abuse that was happening, and there was very little I could do, and it was overwhelming for me. I mean, I learned very quickly that I couldn't call home and ask for help because I called home and said, your kid was misbehaving in class. Found out that was, something I shouldn't have done, because he came into school and he said, you told my mom was bad in school. She made my life a living hell. Now I'm going to make your life a living hell. And I was like, okay, note to self, don't call home and ask for help. Um, and all these kids came with these uh IEPs that told me their story, and it was all so sad. And what I represented was something they were unfamiliar with. Somebody who just cared about them because I just did. I'm just that kind of person. And they didn't know how to take me. So I was a threat. They had not encountered somebody who cared for them. And so I realized that my love and caring for them was actually something that they didn't understand, and it wasn't personal. So in those 4 years of my life when I worked in that environment, I also worked at another school which also was a train wreck. Um but so it was a time when I really learned that it don't take anything personally, and that is something that's in the 4 agreements. Because the way that they treated me by saying, "Miss Stark, I'm gonna kill you," or, as they'd spit in my face, they'd throw these large desks at me, like, over their head, the books at me, it was all because of what they had experienced and how people had treated them. I mean, let me just tell you, I was just like, "Okay, here's the water cycle." And they were just like, "Rah!" They were just so mad. And I was like, I was 22, 23 years old, 24. Finally, by the time I was 26, I was like, I'm done. I can't do this anymore. I cannot. First of all, you don't get paid enough. Second of all my money was any extra money was going back to them to throw pizza parties for them or give them candy. Like I'd throw out Snickers or whatever if they answered a question correctly. And I didn't push them. I was certainly not like, ignorant to the fact that they needed more help than most students. Like I went really slow. So I was just like, I don't know what else to do. I need to take a break. I need to just find myself. I got really, really ill. And I got so clouded in my mind that I actually was like, you know what? I'm done here. I gave it my all. I was a good child. I was a good student. I was a good sister. And here I am completely depleted, have a degree in something I basically don't want anymore. And what do I do? And so I was like standing on the curb in New York City thinking I could just walk in front of a bus and end it all. But then I was like, I don't know what's next. If I didn't truly and honestly, I grew up Catholic. And so I didn't know if that meant I was going to go to a really bad place, or if I was going to come back and be right there on that street and nothing would change, or if I was going to come back and I would remember the fact that I tried to kill myself and have to deal with that. So I was just like, you know what, Amy, you need to go home and put yourself in timeout. You need to clean up your mind, body, and spirit. And that's what I did. And thankfully, my now wife told me, maybe you should try meditation. So that's what got me on the journey to opening up all these gifts, which I wasn't expecting to. I was just trying to chill out.
So when did you hang a shingle out and start charging? Because there was a period of time you probably did it for free. When was that
Yeah.
transition from sort of exploring your talents to being confident enough to do a business, charge, and to, do good business practices?
Yeah, it was probably 2, 3 year probably 3 years later, because I started studying a lot, I took it very seriously. I wanted to understand the connection between science and spirit, what was going on. I said to Finella one day, who was my partner, who recommended meditation, I was like, "I think I can heal with my hands." And I felt crazy telling her that. And I was like, "She'll be the only person I ever tell this to." Like, I never wanted to talk about it. And she was like, "Oh, there's classes right down the street for people who are like you." And I'm like, "There's more of us?" I'm like, I was chronically ill for 30 years. Nobody ever mentioned that we had an energetic body, or that, like, I no, I never went to see an acupuncturist. I went to a chiropractor very briefly, and then, I had issues with my back and broke my back. But that was like the alternative doctor I saw, which really isn't all that alternative. And So I was like, what in the world? There's more of us like this, out there. So I started taking classes. I became a Reiki master after 3 years. And then I took reconnective healing classes. And I was always listening in the car to, Wayne Dyer. So you asked me what books. So other than the Four Agreements, Wayne Dyer is another one that I would recommend. I also at the time read Carolyn Meese. So she did Anatomy of Spirit, and that helped me to understand the chakras and the energy that's stuck in the body. This is why we love each other. And I just kept trying to figure out like, where is this all really going? Like, how can I really truly help people? And at first it was just me talking to people and listening and telling them the spiritual side of the journey. And then it was then helping them to release the stuck energy that was in their body. And the moment that I figured out that energy was related to trauma and emotion is so I was working on a lady who was probably in her 60s or 70s, and I'm passing down her arm, and I'm like, what in the world is this? It's just not moving. And so I ask it. I'm like, well, because I was open to trying anything. So I like ask the energy, why are you here and why won't you leave? And I think didn't leave in that instance because it needed me to experience what I was about to experience, which was the energy said, I am energy about her divorce 12 years ago. And I was like, whoa, that's weird because you're on the meridian for the heart meridian and grief. So I was like, that makes sense. So at the end, I asked her, I said, did you get divorced 12 years ago? And she was like, 11 and a half years ago. And I was like, whoa. I'm like, okay, so there is something there. Oh, and then can I tell you another really crazy story?
Oh yeah, no, you're doing great. This is
Eh,
awesome.
so the other time that I knew that there was significant energy and it actually, okay, so we can be like, I have a weight on my chest. We use all this language and we don't even realize, right? So I'm working on actually my partner, Fen, because a lot of times when you first start out, you're just working on people, right? Like you're like, hey, can I just try something? And they're like, sure. And then you're like, holy crap, that really worked. But what I used my scientific mind to be like, okay, if I did this, that happened. If I did this, that happened, and so I kept a log. But anyway, so she had been through a breakup recently because we had just gotten together. So it was her, past relationship. And I'm like, wow, this is really, really heavy, what I'm finding here. So I disconnected from her body and I turn around to drop it, like to be like, okay, angels, you can take this. And there are steps that are going down. So there's like a ledge right there. And I drop it and I hear, and I was like, did you hear that? And she's like, yeah, I heard that. And I'm like, oh my God, that was what just came off your chest. I was like, she's like, I felt that coming off of me and I felt like a huge weight was being lifted. So, and that had to do with her last breakup. I could see the writing. It was pretty funny. It was like a Las Vegas sign. It looked like it was
Yeah.
really funny. So, there was, I always, the reason why I started a podcast is because I have so many stories like this. And I'm like, I could understand that people might think that I am crazy or that I don't know what I'm talking
Let's
about.
mention that scientific institute, and I'll get to that in 1 second. Finish up, and we'll cover that how you're getting tested for your skills and
Right. Yeah.
proven in a scientific sort of petri dish.
Right.
Yeah,
Yeah. So like I ever since the beginning, I've been like, I want to find how this relates to science, right? And so I have done that and I've done that and I continue to do that and see how this is really evolving things. And Dr. Joe Dispenza is really on the forefront of doing lots of research to figure out how meditation, energy, and healing can really change and transform the body. But
sure.
anyway, the reason why I started a podcast is because I was like, if people knew what was in here and what I've experienced, then they might feel like this exists, just like I did, because I was the first person to be so skeptical. I was kind of like you, how you're like, what did I just see? You're like, wait, no, what? There's just no way certain things happen that it just builds that confidence that you're like, there's something other than what is, what I can see here. Like there's a lot more at work. And you know, one of my favorite things I did on the podcast is I talked to people who had near death experiences. And that was a whole other level of just understanding the next level of this, which is just that, we're all connected, and I feel it when you're in meditation. If you're a meditator, for more than just like a few times, you probably have had this opportunity of connecting with all that is.
Mhm.
And when you have those moments, you don't forget them. It's very hard to forget that feeling that we're all connected. And so every action, is felt within the universe. And, I sometimes, like, I struggle to like pull out weeds and, cut down something that's taking over something, because I'm like, this is living, I can feel it.
Hey,
I'm very,
Winnie the Pooh says that weeds are flowers too. I
Mhm.
love that line. And this is the Stark Transformation Show. And you can check it out. It's 177 episodes now. And is it Spotify, Apple? Obviously,
Yeah. Yeah.
your website, if you'll say your website name again, but people can go there, but they can get it any of the usual ways as well. But tell us just a couple of the ways that are the most popular ones people can listen in.
To the Stark Transformation Show. Oh yeah. So just Spotify and Apple. That's how most people find the show.
Cool. And if there are all those institutes globally, like you can go to a class, it's Dan Millman, it's Greg Braden or somebody, and there's a lot of people, Byron Katie, hundreds. If it's Alternatives UK in Piccadilly Circus, it's a small church. They offer a great set of, offerings. Findhorn in Scotland, there's a Mega Institute just north
Hmm.
of West Point in New York, kind of a Super Soul Sunday spot. Kripalu, if I said it right. Esalen been around forever. There's Hollyhock outside of Vancouver. 1440 Multiversity in California. Scott Creans founded that one with some veterans. My point on this is there's other more research scientific institutes, IONS, uh,
Hmm.
and some others. Which group has been measuring, testing, and you passed? Not that this is important in one sense, and it isn't, and it is, and it isn't, and it is. I don't want to take away and I
Right.
don't want to add to it too much, because it's really more important what you've got going on here and how you help others and people
Right.
trusting their own heart. Which group is it that's been measuring you, so to speak, and you've got a couple skills and you broke a law of physics, I believe, and this is
Yeah.
scientists doing this, and you're
Hmm.
just tell us about that.
Yeah. So I have to say, I've been doing this for 16 years, and I was like, it's time for me to step into the lab and be able to help with research, because somebody with my skill set could actually, be parts of specific um, research. Like I can say, oh, I've worked with this person and I understand that and I know how to do this, that, or the other thing, um, and how to recognize the patterns and things like that. So I I got in touch with this researcher and I was like, I want to take the test to become a nationally certified energy healer. There's only 1,100 in the world. And I want to be a part of research. So I had to do the test. Now, I was scared. I mean, it's kind of like you go through, let's say, becoming a lawyer, and you go through all 4 years or however many years, and then it's time to take the bar. And even though you might have done really well and you read all the books and you think you know everything, you still have to go in there and produce this. And so I was a little nervous, I have to say, but I still went because I was like, put your money where your mouth is. That's who I am. And I went in there, and there was various tests that they gave me. So one of them would be like, okay, send the energy from one hand to the other. And then so they would track that. Like I would say, I'm going from my right to my left, and now my left to my right. And then they would say, stop it and start it. So they measured that. Then they I wanted to see if I run DC current from my body, which I already knew that I ran DC current from my body, which is breaking one of the laws of physics. So the laws of physics, yeah, it sounds great to say I broke the laws of physics, but however, our physics is way behind. So like,
Yeah.
we'll just leave
So
it at
like
that.
PhD in water too. A certain level they
Yes.
have you like a dolphin doing those cones of sound to stun the fish. You focused on the water and
Well, so that was next. That was the
oh, okay.
next one.
Okay.
Yeah. I run DC current from my body. I was able to start 2 dead batteries in cars with my energy. Yeah, it makes me very thirsty, and I have a very funny
Only
story about
hire
that.
her for the stated sessions on the website, not when you're
Yeah,
out of a
I don't
battery.
start cars regularly. It was
Yeah.
only for a hippie that was in Colorado and in Florida for my friend. But so what was I going to say? Oh yeah, so the next thing I had to do was they gave me some water and it had a pH of 8.9, and they knew what the particles per million were, and they said you have 10 minutes to change the structure of the water and use your hands. You can't spit on it, you can't do anything obviously, and you can't touch it. And so I was like, okay. So I was like, well, where do you want me to change the pH to? And I was like, should I go down? Should I go up? And they were like, why don't you bring it down to anything below 7.0 would be great. So I was like, great. Okay. So I started channeling the energy and envisioning it going down to below 7. So it wound up ending up at 6.8 after 5 minutes. So they were like, great, except for you didn't change the particles that were in the water. So it would have increased in particles as it got acidic. So they were like, you need to change the parts per million. So I was like, what do you mean? And they were like, just put more particles in it. And I was like, okay. So I envisioned particles coming in and it changed the parts per million.
Okay, so time out. Let's do a different tack because the audience members are following along and they're following and they get a scientific experiment. But let's back up and go to an individual's life. You're listening right now, and there's things like mantras. Diane Forster is on one of the recent episodes, and she gave us great mantras in the middle of the show that are so powerful. I was in the middle of a run, and I'm starting with one of those mantras because it's open-ended. You can fill it in and try to bring in more of what you want to experience, and maybe just a great run in that instance, or hello pointy bird and beautiful trees, and enjoy, instead of thinking too much and listening to your music only, take in nature as well during the run. So let's shift this. If you're going to do all this focus, instead of changing the pH in the water, what do you recommend as an exercise that anyone could do at any point during the day? A full stop, a crazy Ivan if it's the Hunt for Red October, the Chinese fire drill at a red light. I think it's American Graffiti, that 1950s movie. Everybody changes spots. I think they did this in the 50s in a hot rod. Everybody changes spots in the car for fun. What can a person do just to have not fun, but to pump the brakes, slow down, get from their head, get to their heart? Do you have some patented tips right now?
Yes, I definitely do. Yeah. The number one tip I give everyone is to start saying what you're grateful for. And I learned this from The Secret, and so I can't claim it at all, but which was a movie and a book. But I was carrying, at the time when I first started out with all this stuff, I had a rock in my pocket, and every time I touched the rock, I would say what I was grateful for. No matter where I was, what I was doing, I could be pouring water, and if I, touched the rock, I had to shift my focus to saying what I was grateful for. If I was paying for something and the guy is waiting for $1.68 and I'm like, in my head, I'm like, hold on. I'm grateful for the fact that I have money. And then I would pay him, or I would say, I'm grateful that I have a job or whatever. So what I feel like that does, not only does it get into your heart space, you are telling the universe that you're grateful for what you've already received and that you're open to receiving more. It turns on your parasympathetic nervous system, which helps to, rest, digest, and heal.
Yep.
So it also helps to expand your energetic field and helps to raise your vibration, because you're like, life is good, you're like, it causes your brain to start to notice all the things that are good in life, which then continues to elevate your life because you're paying attention. You're in your brain. You've tagged gratitude as important. So your brain is looking for all the ways in which you could be grateful already, just running in the background.
This is like the Yoda nerve, in the sense that you're tapping into the force. It's in you, it's around you. Maybe it's interdimensional, maybe it's just positivity, maybe it's love, fabric of the universe, whatever that is. You're bringing more of the good stuff in and participating more.
Yep. And that's exactly what I would recommend. It's an easy tool to shift out of where you're at to a higher level, higher energy. You'll definitely wind up healing your body because you're going to be in rest, digest, and heal, and you're going to start to feel like the universe is showing up for you and giving you the things that you need, and then you'll stop stressing.
Can people touch a tree and say something? Can they touch their dog?
Yeah.
Can you give us a couple?
There's so many things that I know.
Yeah, but if somebody's in their living room and they're watching this on the Samsung,
petting your dog, there's something like with the ions that come from just petting your dog. Horses, if you're ever around horses, they have huge hearts, and there's a syncing that happens with your heart with a horse that can be very healing. Same thing with your dogs. I mean, dogs to me are like the best. They
Well, they're
just
like
are.
third graders too. You can hear dogs.
What do
Like,
you
I
mean?
love you, mommy. I love you, mommy.
Oh,
You can
yes, yes,
hear,
yes,
you can
yes,
full
yeah.
on hear dogs.
It was funny. I never had dogs growing up, and then we got a dog, and then we got the next dog because the other dog had anxiety about when we left. So we wanted them to have each other, and I would spend all day by myself with them, and then one day I was like, wait a second, they don't talk, but I've been like feeling like I'm having a conversation with them the whole day, like. Okay, we're gonna go outside today, and I'm gonna feed you, and like, and like you could just get they're wagging their tails, and it just feels like a conversation, and it's just they're wonderful. But yeah, so touching a tree, when I used to go running a lot in the woods, I would lift my hands up to the trees, either palms up or just like feel them, and ask for the energy to come into my palms, because trees have lots of wisdom, they have great energy. It's called foresting, actually, I think, in Japan. So
I
you
think some
definitely.
athletic teams, coaches, like for a tennis team, let's say it's somewhere in Tennessee, they tell their players before they get on the court, we're talking real NCAA players who know their stuff, but they're bringing outside societal stresses with them, their fears, their worries. Maybe they didn't sleep great last night. How do you leave behind to perform at your max? Whether we're talking gymnastics, though, they don't have a tree inside, but you can touch a tree before you hit the court. And there's something to this. So in a way, a lot of the stuff we're referring to are these intangibles that you just have to trust a little bit more. This
Yeah,
much.
yeah, grounding is really a big one too, especially with all the Wi-Fi and signals, and so we're an electrical field. So that's the science of how this all works. We have cells, and they are made up of energy. The cells are communicating with each other, and there's 37 trillion cells, and we all become an electrical antenna, right? So we're interacting with the outside world, and we're constantly getting a feedback. Now, Bruce Lipton, I really recommend reading Bruce
There
Lipton.
we go.
He's another
Okay.
great one. So he had an experiment where he talked about how he took the nucleus out of a cell. And so a nucleus is supposed to be the brain of the cell. Sorry, I was a science teacher. I have to go back and tell everybody. And so he thought, well, then the cell should die, right? Because if you took the brain out of a human, then they would die. So he took the nucleus out, and the cell still gravitated towards what was good for it and away from what was bad for it. So there was something else that the cell was doing to read its environment. And it turns out the outside cell membrane is actually the smarter area. It's actually the part that communicates with the outside world. So we have a heartbeat, and it beats in sync because of the cells are all working together, and the rest of the body as well. And even scientists are now realizing that if the heart is not doing well, like if there's a lot of grief or if there's actual physical problems, there's three ways our energy gets disconnected or screwed up. One is a toxin, and the other is emotion or an injury. So it could be any one of those things that's causing the energy not to flow the right way. And once you get the energy flowing, then everything starts to repair itself. It's the self-healing nature of the body. So, what was I going to say about that?
Bruce
I,
Lipton.
yeah,
And
no, so
yeah.
Bruce Lipton is when I realized that this was actually scientifically based. And, and that was when I was like, oh, if I have a thought that is terrible, it's going to go ripple right through my whole
But
body.
for the audience, not right away. It's usually a repetition of the thought
Right.
and letting it
Exactly.
linger versus being positive or focusing
Right,
on
right.
it.
And
Yeah.
but at the same time, if I have a positive one, it'll ripple through my body and heal me. So, and really what we're talking about is, again, the sympathetic nervous system versus the parasympathetic nervous system. Obviously, if you're thinking good thoughts, you're going to be in the parasympathetic nervous system. You're in the rest, digest, and heal. It's where you have access to your intuition, your better immune system, your creativity. You can see all available options. You get to see the truth, the patterns, and then you can make the next step in a very calculated way that makes sense rather than reacting. So when we're in the sympathetic nervous system, we're in the fight, flight, freeze. and fawn actually is a new one. That's when you try to just please other people around you constantly to survive. But the fight, flight, freeze, fawn is going to cause us to start to cave our energetic system. Things aren't going to circulate. All our energy goes to our extremities, not to our digestion. So the missing link in modern day medicine right now is this idea that we only need to heal through organic food or supplements or exercise.
Pill.
It's yeah, or a pill. Like what we really need to do is to figure out why the nervous system is in fight or flight, whether it's through injury, trauma, or a toxin. And if we can get rid of the toxin, like detox, or stop putting the toxins in and let the body just get rid of it, or the emotions usually are what is the problem. Because more than eating, you think. And what you think
Yeah.
is really going to change how you feel.
And I'm going to do two quick things before I try to get to what can a person do right now to address when they're feeling stuck, they've got a life story that they're married to. If you grab a particular audience member, and most of us have a very long life story, 10, 12 paragraphs, this is what's happening to me, I'm suffering this, feels very real. You're not going to convince anybody that their life story is not their life story. How
Oh,
can
yeah.
you detach long enough to bring a little sunshine, a little light, a little air in? What's an exercise? How can someone trust that it's not a single lane highway, one way, 10 miles an hour, limited? How
Right.
do they buy a little bit of breathing space? Is there a video to go watch, a book to read? Is there a little another? Is it petting the dog? Is it going for a run? Is it getting fresh air? Talk to us about what can someone do listening to this who says, but you don't understand my situation? They're still in the
Right.
his ego has certain things that it says, and we're all carrying around a lot of thinking, a lot of, we'll just call it non-love, and
Mhm.
it's up here, and it's totally seems real, and it
Right,
starts
right.
with my problem is you don't
Mhm.
understand my situation, and a bunch of other
Mhm.
usual, but you'll find that it's very patterned. It's there's nothing original about it, there's nothing creative, and there's nothing that offers a happier future for you. So how can a person get unstuck a little bit on their own, buy some breathing space, so they go, oh, she's pointing to something that now I'm recognizing. I just got enough light in there, I can recognize it in my own life. What can someone do? Write down a list of something, do an exercise, tapping,
Yeah.
hot
There
shower. Tell us.
right, right. I
Yeah.
mean, so there's lots of things that you can do. There's the physical things that you can do, such as the rose spray, or envisioning roses, like spraying roses. You don't have to actually have the rose spray. I mean, it helps, but just that your brain and your body can connect with roses because it's probably connected with them before, so it can bring that in. An Epsom salt bath is something that I love to do. Tapping is another one. Going for a walk in nature. Yeah, tapping here, the specific points. I'll have to teach you them.
Okay.
um, it's okay. And then going out in nature, holding a baby, petting a dog, all the things, watching a funny movie, going out with friends. So we know what we need to heal, but sometimes we don't give ourselves the permission to have it. And most people they turn to sweets because it actually releases something in their body that helps to relax them and make them feel better. We don't want to necessarily turn towards that because it's probably not going to create a better health down the road. So we want to start to have healthier options to replace what we once used to numb or heal our
Hmm.
body.
Hmm. Very, very interesting.
But really truly, if we want to change our lives, we have to change what we're thinking, and then everything else will follow from there. So Dr. Joe Dispenza talks about how your personality creates your personal reality. So how do you see the world? Like, do you see the world as dangerous? Do you see the world as having people who are horrible? Do you see the world as not showing up for you? So when we sit and we take a look at how we are seeing the world, if it's not how we want to see the world, we have to consciously change that. Now, one of the ways to do it, which will take a longer amount of time, is to stack the evidence. It's like, if you believe that there are bad people in this world, then you can try to stack the evidence of all the good people that you know, right? And
Yep.
pretty soon you'll realize, oh, the stack of good people is a lot higher than the stack of bad people, or the stack of incidences of where the universe had my back versus when I felt like the universe didn't have my back is much smaller. So you actually can shift to this new reality and this new way of seeing things, because like I said, your brain is trying to protect you, so it blows up these times where somebody did you dirty or whatever, where things didn't work out. Your brain remembers it and magnifies it, so it's kind of lying to you. It's this person isn't around the corner trying to kill you, but your brain is trying to keep you safe. So it's like, don't ever talk to anybody that looks like that or acts like that, or and like you start to fear the world. But really it's just one person, one time, and there's so much more evidence of other people showing up and helping you, right? So that's another tool that you can do. But with tapping, the same thing happens, but at lightning speed. So you don't even have to, stack the evidence, if you will. Like if you want to say that's like 2.0, 3.0 is tapping and
Like university
processing.
classes. Yeah.
Yeah. Like if you really want the transformation, you're going to do something like tapping that accesses the brain and the body and the trauma and the programming, because tapping, what it does is it takes down the neural network that's in your brain that is saying that people are dangerous, and says, wait a second, what's the truth of this matter? Because when you tap, by the nature of which tapping is interrupting the signal that you're getting that this person is dangerous or people are dangerous. Because when you tap, it feels good. So your
Sure.
brain says, wait a second, are people dangerous and we feel good? This doesn't make sense. So it takes down the neural network and builds a new one that remembers that people are not dangerous, that people are good, or most people are good. Like I remember one time I was in the car, ask for signs, by the way. I was in the
Well,
car.
explain that. Explain that for a second before we get to the car. I'll remind you about the car, but
Yeah,
tell
well,
us
no,
that
it
ask
goes
for sign.
together.
Okay.
Yeah. So when you're feeling lost, you can also ask for signs. One of the things that I teach people is to pick a sign. Like I have feathers and dimes. Feathers mean my angels are conspiring and the universe is conspiring for my greatness. If I see that, I'm like, yeah, I'm on the right path. And same thing with dimes. It's just what evolved for me. And so if I'm feeling unsure, a dime will show up, and then I'm like, okay, you're on your path. This is great. But anyway, so I was in the car and I was feeling like I was coming back from an event where there were some bad people at the event. Like there was just some mean people. And I was like, God, like, should I really be worried about these people? Is this because it was about being gay and things like that. And I was just like, do I need to worry about this? And then I put on the radio and it said, Most People Are Good was the song that came on. And I'm like, you're right, universe. So, we just have to be paying attention and to remind ourselves that we're always being watched, in not in a creepy way, but
Right.
like,
Right.
like obviously there, people are like, well, what when I'm, being intimate or anything. No, that's not.
No, you have privacy, but you don't have
Yeah.
privacy. You have privacy, but you don't have privacy.
Yeah, I mean, they're not interested in that. I mean, there's so much to be orchestrated and worked out. Like, for instance, if you take that book that I picked up about the mediumship, John Edwards' book, the
Afterlife.
Afterlife
Yep.
book, I had to be thinking at that very day, moment, time in my life that I wanted to learn about mediumship. And my specific question to the universe was, am I supposed to be a medium? And for me to find that book, to have that girl named Amy donate the book with the notes still in it, have those people even write a note, and have those people say, this is not your gift. Who writes a letter that says this is not your gift and underlines it?
And that's
There's
I don't have one as good, but I've got a bookstore one with I found like a $10 or $20 bill in there. I was guided to find this bill, bookstore just in there, and it was Sylvia Brown. She's
oh
passed
yeah, I
over,
used to
totally
listen.
reconciled, amazing, loving, great business advisor. But she literally helped me find that bill. So mine's not as sexy, but keep going with
Well,
the
what
book.
my point is like the amount of things I had to be walking down that street at that time, because nobody else, somebody else could have picked up that book. I could have not said, universe, I could have said, I don't have enough time for this is too big. I thought I could come in here and get a free book or what was cheap. Um, there were so many things they had to decide to have that book fair while I was walking down that street. I used to take all different routes. When I was walking in New York City, it's New York City. I mean, you could walk any path. So it's just interesting how the universe is like, hey, you have a question, we're going to help you out. And
We
it's actually called your reticular activating system.
sure.
So let me explain this. So your brain evolved to take in a lot of information that is happening all around you. I mean, right now, actually, the air conditioner, or not air conditioner, the heater is on in the other room. I can hear that. I can feel my feet on the ground. I can feel the blanket on my legs. I can taste the coffee still that is in my mouth. I'm breathing. I'm thinking. I'm doing an interview. There's so many things going on, and our brain has to sort out what's the most important stuff. So air conditioner, heater, whatever, not important. The feeling of the blanket on my legs, not important. So what's important is Michael, right? And telling what I've experienced is important. So my brain says, okay, tell him everything that's important. And the same is true. Like if you were to go and buy a new car and you want to buy a white car, all of a sudden you start seeing white cars everywhere, right? And you're like, oh, I could have that one or that one. Or then all of a sudden it's just the only thing you see is the exact car that you want everywhere. And you're like, I never even saw this before. How is this happening? It's because your brain tagged it as important. So it's important to then use that as a tool to create the life that you want and say, this is what I want. So your brain finds it in life. So if I say, I want to find what I'm grateful for, it will find all the things to be grateful for. If I say, I want to find a job that is going to make me feel amazing, I will find all the jobs that seem to make me feel amazing. That's the way my brain is. It's a goal achieving machine. It wants to make you correct. It wants to make you right because it won't feel safe then. And that's what we're always trying to do.
So life is filled with energy, and there's all different types of energy. And we know there's a lot of energy we don't want to have anything to do with, but we still put our focus on. There's flows that have to do with what we'll call the heart, positivity, love, feeling relaxed, what we like more of. Call it anything you want. There's millions of those flows. There's a lot of these flows. And in a way, our assignment in life, if you want to call it that, our growth in life, our opportunity to expand in life is learning to just even tell the difference, to find a time out to say, I don't want this anymore. And our suffering usually brings us to a point of no return where we're like, enough. I can't
Right.
take it anymore. Relationships, health, this, that, the job, it's not satisfying. And so what you had mentioned Wayne Dyer earlier, and I thought immediately of that famous quote of his, loving people live in a loving world. And I'll just make up the other half, hating people live in a hateful world, same world. So it's
Mm-hmm.
back to the flows. Where do you want to put your focus? If
Mm-hmm.
I had to say something I've learned in 10 or 11 years is just where you put your focus. And I love safe sentences. So where you put your focus is where you put your focus. Nobody can argue with that.
Yes,
It's
it's
safe.
true. Where your
Uh,
attention goes, focus flows or something like that.
exactly. And I
Yeah.
wanted to ask you, I thought too, when you talked about the universe, how it's conspiring to bring you stuff. I mean, whether that's Esther Hicks, Abraham Hicks, The Alchemist, Paulo Coelho. I love The Alchemist. The personal
Yes, that was
journey,
one of the first books I read. I recommend that one too.
it's somewhere, it's the red one up there somewhere. The Alchemist I really recommend because it's so easy.
Hmm.
Big journeys are okay, and sometimes it's a lot of ebb and flow or obstacles, which you can attest to. But your personal journey, in a way, waking up on this whole difference in awareness. Where are you putting your focus? Most of us are looking straight at our toes, me, you. It's thinking, we don't look up. But when we look up and take stock and we decide we want to make some choices, that's where your personal journey is on. You can
Right.
actually get stuff done that's fun, positive. You can go in new directions. You can open up. You let go of the old. Tell us about how do we even take the first step if someone's out there and they know they've got a lot on their plate. Which, let's do it this way, your website, what would they want to look at first? Is it go watch some of your shows, episodes? Is there a basic class, a course tapping you for a 15-minute consult? What can they do to sort of take stock of where do I even begin?
Right. So I recently talked to somebody who was a friend from the past, and he was like, hey, I'm going through some things, and I was like, why don't you just listen to my podcast? And then I was like, whoa, there's 175 podcasts or whatever it was at the time. And I'm like, I need a starter kit. So I went through and I was like, this is what you need to know. And I tagged all of the podcasts that have these little bits of wisdom that I've been sharing, and many more, about the law of attraction and just how to create the life that you really want, some mindsets, fun stories. But it's the starter kit, and that's what we called it, is because you do need a foundation to understand this. I mean, especially if you're coming from like where I was coming from, which was the science background, all Western medicine, and chronically ill. That's where I started. And now this is pretty cool. It's because I love science and biohacking. I got my DNA sequenced, and I wanted to find out how old my age is and how old my immune system is. And my immune system is that of a 28-year-old at 42 years old.
This
So
is all science for the audience.
yeah,
This is
like
all
I didn't
science.
make this
Yeah.
this up. Like
Yeah.
they told me. And in fact, I met with the guy who is one of the partners that owns the company, and he's like, I'm straight up jealous of you. He's like, I don't know how you have an immune system of a 28-year-old at 42 years old. He's like, do you see where you are on this graph? You're an outlier among outliers. So like these people, somebody who's going to sequence their DNA and find out how old their real age is and their immune system age, is going to be somebody who's already doing a lot of things to make sure that they are going to live a long time, right? So I was an outlier among outliers, which is pretty incredible, because I thought that I was going to be on medicines for the rest of my life. And actually, Michael, when I was 26 years old, I I knew that I jumped timelines. I was supposed to die at 40. And I had a big fear of that. And I didn't tell anybody that, because I thought it was irrational, really.
Well, that's still another 10 years away, so you don't know yet.
No, I'm 42.
No,
well, I guess we have my immune system. Let's not even talk about it. But so actually, I didn't tell anybody, and I go to see this psychic friend of mine, and she's like, so you were supposed to die at 40, but you're no longer on that path. And I was like,
ooh. So let me interject on something, and this is something I forget to mention, but angels exist. I've got photos of angels. I help people let go, see, feel, hear. So trust that angels exist, but they can alter your path. And so, yes, you've signed up for a particular journey. You're given as much as you can take on your own. If you don't live it on your own, experience it on your own, and make your own choices, what are you doing? You've got to live your life. And I think angels, because they're so unconditional love, and they're so ready to assist, and they love you unconditionally. But can you talk to us about this dynamic of, you've got to go through what you're going through. At any point, you can choose, maybe, let's say, make better decisions, flow your energy more gently, choose more love, more action without so much thinking and drag or resistance. So talk to us about resistance, awareness, love, negativity, positivity is abundance. Give us the pep talk on how do we right the ship and get sailing.
So here's what I know. You have to feel it to heal it. And so when you feel your feelings, when you take inventory about what's happening or what has happened, then you can start to heal it. It has to come into your awareness to be let go. Like your body's just been holding on to it until you bring your awareness to it. And then it's like, oh, thank God, now we can go. Like it's like, imagine if emails kept coming in and you just never read them, right? And they were important emails, they would start stacking up. And so eventually you have to go through each one of them and be like, okay, so that person, whatever. You want to clear your desk or clear this up so that everything is flowing the way that it's supposed to. And then you become like a magnet, because you're so clear about what you want to attract in your life. That's part of the law of attraction. It has to do with your energy. It also has to do with your reticular activating system. So when you say, I want to see more things that are going to make me grateful, what comes to me is things that I'm grateful for, because I am now noticing them. So it's a combination of how I see the world plus how my energy is responding to the world. So clearing this up and sending a coherent signal, which is actually a scientific term for heart rate variability and our overall health and wellness and resilience with the world. So like if we're a strong coherent signal, then we're going to be attracting the things that we want.
So give us that gratitude. We'll call it a mantra, exercise, a little thing that we can do, but literally pretend you have 5 audience members who are ready to go. Take them through 30 seconds of, do they have to grab their dog, an object? Can they just think of their most pleasant thing that they're thankful for? Take us step by step through the next 30 seconds. So everyone, roll your sleeves up, stop driving the car, pull over into a parking lot. This is the thing you want to replay 3 times. Do it 3 or 4 or 5 times. The more
Oh,
you
for
do it.
sure. Yeah,
Okay,
the
but
more you do
talk to
it.
us from scratch here. Take us through the gratitude
Well,
exercise.
yeah, because it will start to create a lens in which you see the world. So then you don't have to keep focusing on building it, or even it'll just come naturally. Like I'm naturally very grateful for my life and the things that show up in my life because I've trained my brain to be that way. So this all started because I had trouble falling asleep. It used to take me 2 hours to fall asleep. And after saying what I was grateful for, I was falling asleep in 2 minutes or less. And it's because you can't go out and grab sleep. And I was in a state of fight or flight living in New York City. As I told you, I was working with all these kids with emotional disturbances. And it's a very go, go, go at fight or flight kind of state. But when you say what you're grateful for, immediately you turn on your parasympathetic nervous system, you turn into rest, digest, and heal, you turn into receiving mode, and you can receive sleep. That's the only way you're ever going to get sleep.
Okay, I've
So
just pulled
I
over in a
I know.
parking lot.
So
I'm listening to
now
your
you're
voice.
parked. So just start with the easy things. If you are so angry with the world and things have been going so wrong in your life and you're like, you don't understand, say, I'm grateful for the car that I'm in. I'm grateful for the air in my lungs. I'm grateful that I can see, I can hear. Start with the things that seem little, but like we forget how important that is because there are people who can't see. There are people who can't hear or touch. Here's actually, I'm going to just a little bit sidetrack. Try this at home. And you can try this with your kids. This was a really big eye opener for me. So I was taking a class, it was called gerontology and it was in college. And they said, we want you to cover all your senses and we want you to try to interact with the world because that's what it feels like to be old. Everything is dulled. So I had to put on glasses and then I had to smear a little bit of like Vaseline on it. I had to put cotton balls in my ears. I hate cotton. Um, and then I had to put tape on my fingers and then I had to plug up my nose and there wasn't much you could do for your mouth. So and then you had to try to interact with your friends and like have dinner and all that other stuff. So I did. And the thing that I noticed for myself, which was very, very surprising, I thought I would really miss my eyesight the most. I missed touch. Having tape on the ends of my fingers really creeped me out. I found that touch is like the big thing for me. And, this goes along with the not 4 agreements, the 5 love languages. Touch is one of my favorite things to receive. So, and also how I work with people is through energy healing. So using my hands and I can actually feel my whole body. It feels.
Is that Chapman, 5 love languages?
I don't know who wrote it. I don't
Might be
remember.
Chapman. I don't remember.
Okay. So check out which love language you are. So I just told you how to be grateful, how to figure out what your most favorite sense is. Because that also can help you with your abilities. Like if you're trying to develop your abilities, where do you really prefer to feel energy, hear energy, see energy? There's all the clairvoyances,
Sure. Well, you're leading into one of the next things. Are you ready to maybe do some angel photos, Native American chiefs, Claire, the angel?
Sure. We could
Okay.
try it too.
Yeah. And I'm going to just rub my hands together as a way to just in a circle to reset. Because I remember the first time I saw somebody sage my property, but they hadn't closed it off. They're out on the perimeter. Let's say it's a rectangle for the house, the yard. They're closing off the property. But before they closed it, they got a young person to come over with their hand and feel the before and feel the after.
Mm-hmm.
And I got brought over and I'm like knocking my hand, almost wondering if my hand can listen. I remember going to a candle afterwards and not burning my hand or anything, but like, does this work? Can I feel anything? So I did heat on a flame without burning my hand. I just wanted to make sure this was working. Could I turn it on? And because I watched somebody I trust who was maybe 10 or 12, like, when a little kid eats a piece of sushi and they don't freak out, they say, yum, you trust that they were really liking that piece of sushi.
Right.
And I watched that little one do the before they had closed it off. They look like Julia Childs with a sage, big thing, a sage that they were blowing half of it all over the yard. And then they got to close it off to protect or to ground or to get rid of negative energy on the property. But this little kid comes up, feels the before, and then it gets closed off, Julia Childs with the sage. And then nods like a Native American chief, wise. They are feeling something, they sense it. I'm like, okay, what's going on here? And for a couple weeks, I'm feeling the flame, and I'm like, okay, I think there's a way to expand your senses. I'm going to trust this. So I'm going to put my hand out, and only the highest vibe and an intention here, only compassion and love. Any of my thinking and worry and fear, park it in the, state next door. See if you can just feel my energy through 2 screens in Colorado from San Antonio, Texas. I'll tell you a dad joke just for fun. What do you call a fish with no eye?
I have no. What?
What do you call a fish with no eye?
I have no. Oh.
FISH, drop the I.
Dude, you
FSH.
always have the. Oh my God, that was hilarious.
Could you feel a little bit of
such
vibe?
dad jokes. Yeah, of course. Yeah.
Yeah, good. Okay, I'm going to put Joy's photo up. We were doing this before the show, so we already know it's going to work. But for the audience members, you can pause this as well and take as much time, then come back to, and I'm going to really emphasize Amy's voice, her positivity. Amy, why don't you do something for us? Go back on a great memory and double your vibe.
Okay, give me 1 second.
What a challenge that was for her, because she wasn't expecting that. But
I wasn't.
If she's already doubled,
because then I have so many great ones. But yeah, I mean, just like knowing that the angels had supported us through that, car accident, that was amazing.
Okay, so here's an angel named Joy. She's the emotion joy ambassador communicator. Just makes stuff easy. Bottom line for folks out there, get out of your head and you're letting an angel do her job. But go ahead, Amy. Why don't you get a hug, smell some flowers, and why don't you ask what Joy is saying to you? And remember, people have to come to you and they ask their questions. You help guide them. So in a way, you're doing a lot of the heavy lifting, but of course, angels are doing a lot too. Why don't you get that hug, smell some flowers, but also what does Joy have to say to you for all of us?
She's just giving me a lot of love in my heart.
Aw.
Yeah. Really.
And is there a mantra we can all walk away with right now? A reminder? Is it laugh more, live more?
She's just saying you are here, like trying to remind us that, like, to stay present.
I like it. And
don't go to the past. And actually, it brings up something I once heard by Michael Pollan. He said, anxiety is when we're in the future, and depression is when we're in the past. And what we want to do is we want to stay present, and we want to, because the only time that we can actually heal ourselves actually is in the present moment. We have to activate who we are, which brings me, I haven't even talked about my new membership coming up, which is called Activate. But we want to activate who we really are in the moment and become fully present. And that's one of my favorite things to do, is to be fully present with people. And when they are fully present with us or with me, think about it for yourself. The times when you really enjoyed another human being was when you were really, really present. Because you can take all of them in, and there's just you and that person. And it almost feels magical. It almost feels like there's nothing outside of you. And that's what Joy was trying to remind me of, is to stay present right here. Because, we are human, but here's the thing. I didn't share this with the gratitude process or practice. It's also a process, so that I call it both. When we shift our thinking in the moment, we start getting this flexibility with being able to change our thoughts at will. It's a muscle that we have to work, and we have to learn how to use. So what she was just talking about, Joy, was getting back into the present moment, because a lot of times we will be drifting off into, okay, I gotta, Aiden, my son, is coming home in 2 hours or whatever. And then what am I making for dinner? And do I need to get groceries? And, what am I going to do about blah, 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 all the stuff? But coming back here is where we need to be, because I can't do any of that stuff right now. It is wasted creative energy. But if I stay present with you, Michael, and, share what I know with the listeners, that's when change can be created, right? Because I am 100% me here with you now. And that is a gift. Just that, nice. Our presence.
Nice. I think of a sailboat And often we don't realize we have the sails and we could actually put them up. The sails are down. You're just sitting in the middle of the Chesapeake Bay, rocking a little bit. And that's life with the incessant chatter going on. What you think is
Mhm.
happening to you. A big oil tanker goes by and sends you a wake that your boat's rocking. But anytime you want, you can stop focusing on that and get going with sailing in life, a wind in your sails, and go in any direction you want. Seneca had a great quote about that, which is just sail, don't talk. And talking is all the stuff going on. The heart is a great sailor. Okay, back to
Right. Wait,
joy.
wait, wait. I wanted to wait, hold on one second. I want to
Yeah.
say one thing about that. So you have that analogy. My analogy that I always tell people is imagine you're going on a trip. So if you notice my website is I have a camper. We like to travel the country. It's about the journey. We want to stop and smell the roses, that kind of stuff. Anyway, so when you're going on a journey, you do need directions, right? And so if you are trying to create a new life, you want to put that in the search bar, right? As if you're going to a certain location, but you always have to check in with where you're at. You have to put your current location in order to get the directions. So when we check in with where we're at, then we can move forward. And a lot of people, let's say they're on a weight loss journey. You don't know that you need to lose weight until you actually realize your pants don't fit, right? You have to have this moment where you say, okay, this is where I'm at. And I urge you to love and accept where you're at, because you were, and this really helped me to change my life as well. When I first started out, I was like, you know what? If I can love all these other things about me, then I can love the bad too. Like if it's helping me to create this life that I really want, and I can take ownership and love that, then I should be able to take ownership of the things that have gotten me there, even if they're bad. Like, I don't know, something like maybe currently I'm not working out as much as I should be, right? Or feel like, don't shit on yourself. Um, as much as I would like to be honest, I'm just, failing to find time, right? So that's something that's not great about what I'm doing right now, but I still love and accept myself that I'm just, my focus isn't on where it isn't a priority yet. So, but I love myself because I'm still trying. I still have awareness about it. So I'm not demonizing that part of myself or saying that I'm a horrible person. I love that. And then I can say, you know what? It's okay. Tomorrow's a new day. I'll do it then.
You can love, appreciate, and even allow for those areas that you can knock, but that are opportunities for growth. I'm going 100% positive here. You can just love those areas where maybe you're not there yet, where if you look at the situation, you're like, oh my God, I'm totally not there yet. I'm not spending any time on it. I've been a lackey. But you have tremendous opportunities for growth versus the usual, my problem is, or this
Right.
happened to me.
Right. Take ownership and love the fact that you're there. It may not be where you want to be, but it got you you're still alive. Your heart is still beating. You're still healthy ish, whatever, whoever you are, like just love the fact that you made it to here. In fact, one time I heard the chances of us being here on the planet right now is like astronomical based on what scientists predicted, of our genetic DNA being here right now. It's like, I can't even, it's a past billions and trillions and quadrillions. I don't know. It's a Googleplex maybe. And so you making it to this very moment is very special. And so we want to honor all of that. Even though it wasn't exactly what you wanted, and maybe you have chronic illness and maybe you don't have the job that you want, love yourself for getting you to this point. And now you have the awareness that you want to create something different. And that's great too.
Captain Amy Stark, sailor, voyager, inspiration, and scientific philosopher too. Okay, so let's do this.
Sorry, bring joy back.
I'm going to bring joy back. Have her bring you a flower or a beach smell. You can go either or and then combine both. Or joy. Did you already get it?
Joy. She
Joy.
just actually was peppermint. That was weird.
Okay.
Very strong
and
peppermint.
I was going to say Joy's already got a mind of her own in terms of she's a big energy who's, if somebody needs to try to grasp angels, I spent 2 years trying to grasp angels. I got this far. They exist, enjoy it. And so she's a giant slipstream of the emotion joy. Think all the times you just clapped spontaneously and just exclaimed something, or you laughed. Your laughter is hope and healing for others. I think she said that. So the more, laugh more, live more, love more, allow for more, slow down where you can, and then slow down more. But okay, tell us something that you're experiencing right now. If you want to get a sentence from her or advice for January or advice for the year, I'll move on in a second to another angel, but last little bit from Joy.
She's saying you have all the love in your heart that you will ever need. So tap into your own well of what's there.
I love it. I love it. Okay, here's Charlotte. She's everybody's favorite school teacher with words meant to help you expand. If it was Mrs. Wilson in third grade, or you're in Canada listening right now, third form, think of your favorite teacher from childhood. That's her, a little older, in her 50s, like Audrey Hepburn's sister. I got to mention that. She's one of my business managers. Tough taskmaster when you're learning to appreciate all this stuff. Here's Charlotte. What's Charlotte got for you?
She's referring to life as a lesson or learning from life. That's what she showed me books and writing and the board and everything. She's just like, look at life as a journey, as they call this earth school. So that's basically what she's just saying. Just keep learning, just keep growing. No judgment. In fact, I haven't talked about that. And one of the things that stops the learning is judgment. When we say that we know everything, or that it only can be this way, it stops the learning. It stops the process. So having a growth mindset when you're trying to do this stuff is absolutely necessary. But I also would say that having a growth mindset and being successful in life go hand in hand. So I have on my desk this question mark to remind me that I always ask questions, to stay curious about life. And here's the thing: when you're curious, you are in the parasympathetic nervous system.
I was going to get that. I'm starting to learn Amy's language on this, and
yeah, you're
opening
in
openness, opening possibility.
We expand our energy. We're open to possibility, and then that's where we start to discover these amazing things, like our ability to communicate with the other side.
And I always say this about Christmas Carol, a little 75, 79 page book. Nobody realizes how short it is, but judging that precludes possibility. I mean, you're not gonna judge like your license and be like, that's not my name. And in a way, maybe it isn't your name in the big universal picture. So there's very few things that are absolute, like love is. That's a good judgment. But judging that precludes possibility is crazy. It's just a waste of energy. Your neighbor, we all know maybe that neighbor's a jerk, but think of Christmas Carol. We only think of Scrooge at the beginning of the book as the biggest jerk in the world. He's got dental floss for a connection to life, no joy, just about money. And he doesn't even know he's miserable. He thinks everything's fine. He's treating people, he treats himself, no self-love.
Mm-hmm.
Goes through this journey that you could argue is just 2 minutes. Dream time, Aboriginal dream time, angel dream time. We get a beautiful Disney animated movie, black and white from 1950s with Alistair Sim or somebody like that, the actor. And the point is, at the end of the book, we forget he's one of the biggest joy bringers, best business person around. He's inspiring. His presence probably goes across the street. Fantastic laugh. You'd want him at your game of charades at the next dinner party. We forget that the transition is there, and that's almost the choice we have in every moment. So back to Charlotte. Let's do one last thing. It's with her. Smell, taste, feel. One of the most important lessons that we all have to go through. Anything like that you think she wants to pass along.
Okay. She was referring to hope, and wait, you have another one that's called hope, right?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. She was referring to having hope and what she showed me is taking the next step without seeing the ground of where to step. So just using hope to take that next step. And I have a great story about that. So I knew that I was going to go. So I went from New York City public school teacher 4 years. Then I worked for a family privately for 4 years. And I knew it was time for me to take what I had learned to the world as much as I could. I started blogging, started working with clients, and all kinds of stuff. So, and doing speaking and teaching and all that. And it was kind of weird because my lease ended in February. And or actually, no. It was gonna end a couple months early, I think. Anyway, it doesn't matter. My heat stopped working. It wasn't working consistently, and I was paying, a premium to live there, and I was getting annoyed. And I was like, you know what? I've had enough. And Spirit kept saying, "You're gonna move. You're gonna leave anyway, right?" And they were like, "You've got this, and we've got this. Don't worry. Just get rid of your lease. Just leave." And I was like, "Okay." And I was like, "Well, worst case scenario, I can move in with my parents in New Jersey and commute into the city every day," which would have been kind of a nightmare. But I had done it years earlier, just because I needed to do it for a short period of time. And so I called up my landlord and I was like, "Okay, you haven't fixed this you've had plenty of time. I'm freezing over here. I've got squirrels scratching at the roof now." And he's like, "They're not going to come through." I'm like, "They sound like they're going to come through." And so I was like, "I'm ending the lease and that's it." Like, and he was like, "I understand." It was actually amicable cuz yeah, I know. I was like, I
New
didn't owe
York
him
people
any.
don't understand. You have to almost
Yeah.
get a co-guarantor. It's like literally World War II, Nazi Germany
Yeah,
with
I
leases.
was a really good tenant. I never asked anything. In fact, like the guy who came over to fix my stove was like, "You really could get a new stove." I'm like, "You know what? I never use it really." So I was a great tenant. I had given him plenty of times to like fix this up, and he's like, "Whatever, it's fine." So I'm like, "Okay." So I hang up and I'm like, "Now what? Where am I gonna live?" All of a sudden I get a call from Finella, my she was my girlfriend at the time, and she's like, "You're never gonna believe this. My tenant who was living in my apartment that I rent to him, I thought he would never leave, and now he wants to leave and go to his boyfriend's house, and so I have apartment available because she knew I was doing this, and yeah, and so I'm like, "No freaking way." So all of a sudden, I got immediately upgraded to, an apartment in the middle of Manhattan that was, like, a million times nicer, and it was closer to work. I could then hop on the train, just go a couple of stops, and I was there. I was driving all the way, and it was taking me an hour and a half, and it was finding parking and all this nonsense. I was suddenly, my life got super easy and smooth, and I was like, whoa. All I did was have to trust. I had no clue where I was going to live. I just was like, I will figure it out. I won't be on the streets. I knew that. So it wasn't like I was totally crazy, but I just urge people. And there's been times in my life where I had no idea how something was going to work out, but I was being urged to just trust. And I did. One was when with the podcast, Spirit came to me and said that the whole world was going to change and that I should start a podcast and teach the things that I teach because the whole world was going to change. And that was right before COVID hit. So it was 2020 and the podcast came out on March 17th and the lockdown started on March 19th. And I didn't understand that the whole world was going to change, but I trusted. They kept saying, "Don't delay, don't delay, don't delay." I'm like, "What is the rush?" And then sure enough, my son was home and then I wasn't able to podcast for like a couple of weeks because I was trying to figure out what is going on here, like what's the next step.
For your show, the podcast with 177 episodes, can you just highlight one, two, three, four guests that you've had on that you're like, don't miss? We're not talking any specific thing. You just love the vibe and you were like, oh my God, I
Well,
couldn't stop thinking about the show.
I do have the top 11
Okay, where do
podcasts.
we find that again?
Yeah. So you go to my website, podcast, and then there's a tab that says podcast, and then go to top 11. Those were the highest rated ones, but they also were just like my favorites. They just
Okay, but you can
obviously
only
were
pick
great.
one. The whole set's going to get lost. You're only going to have one
You
episode. You can
can't now.
say,
One now, can I have three maybe?
okay, three.
Anyone
Which
that's done by
three?
Mark Gober, he's awesome. He was on my podcast.
How do you spell his
Three.
last name?
Gober. He talks about the connection between science and spirit a lot and consciousness. And he's done so many interviews. He has his own podcast, which is amazing. So any one of his interviews, they made it into the top 11, I think. I really loved Karen's NDE, which is a verified NDE. So it's a near death experience. So she actually saw something that could be verified by a doctor that happened while she was crossed over.
Wow.
So so that was really cool. That's listed there. And then I really love Deborah Attella's She was just really funny. And she's from I think New Jersey. I don't know. We have very similar energy, and she had a near death experience, and she's on there. Gosh, Jen McNerney telling her story about finding her truth and speaking her truth. Another one who left basically a cult kind of. Yeah, I mean, there's just so many great stories. They're like, you know what I mean? It's all of the stories. My podcast is about hope, healing, and transformation, right? And I talk about my stories about how I transform my life, and then I give them a platform to share their story about how their life changed. Usually, people go through a dark night of the soul, and then they find their path because they realize things hadn't been adding up before. Just like how I did. I was like, I did everything
But
right,
for the
and I'm not
audience
happy.
right now, person driving along, listening, watching, it doesn't have to go to that point. Obviously, it does
I
because.
mean, should I say yours? I mean, that's obvious. We had so much fun when you were on mine.
Oh yeah, yeah. Hey, go ahead
But
if
I
you
thought
want
that
to
would be
tout it.
cheating.
I'm just listening right now. Go ahead.
I mean, we had a blast. I mean, I've never in my life experienced the things that I experienced when I had you on the show. Like the smells that came from Hawaii. I mean, it was like as if I was transported there for a moment. When you had Sophia Loren spray was this her, right?
Audrey Hepburn.
Audrey Hepburn, yeah, spray the perfume, and I was like, "Oh my gosh, I've never smelled something so beautiful." When when one of the angels said the mic thing, that was really hilarious. Gosh, I've done quite a few interviews since I had you on, so it's hard to remember everything,
Let's
but it
do
was
Audrey
really fun.
Hepburn again. Her photos at the front page of my website next to Geronimo, Sai Baba, some angel photos. Here's Audrey. And just go ahead and let her move in the photo. I know this is a lot to allow for, but a wink, a smile, a nose twitch, shoulders waggle. Breathe, 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 breathe
Yeah,
for the
yeah, her
audience.
eyebrow,
Let go.
her one eyebrow went up.
Yay. And just ask her how to have the most fun time and let her fill in the blank.
Dancing and listening to music.
Yay. And she wasn't on the dance card for today, but we put her in at the last second. Way to go. Here's my guardian angel, light waves of energy and water. If anybody needs a more definition, Pacific Princess, soft-spoken professor, think Moana, the kids movie, Disney, the opening scene where it's the little kid before the person grows up, Moana. She goes in to get the conch shells, the ocean pulls apart, and there's like a wall of water with the turtle swimming by saying hi, and she's picking up something, an amulet comes. But so think of her as the angel that would move that water aside. She helps make the water in Hawaii. When you go surfing with your eyes shut, you surf like a professional.
Yeah, I can smell the surf.
Yeah. So get
I love
anything you
water. I
want.
love being at the beach. Wow, now I feel like I have it in my mouth.
Yeah.
I feel like I swallowed some water.
So ask Min, like
Salt water.
Minnesota, just for some words of wisdom and how maybe touching water, being around water can help reset
Mm,
everything.
I do love being around water. Mhm.
Got it?
Yep.
Okay, so anything in terms of a mantra or a suggestion or just, or did I say it out
Just
loud
she's just
and blurt?
yeah, she's just reminding me that how healing the ocean is, the beaches, the sun. So the spray that comes up when a wave crashes has negative ions. And so and
Well,
you
we can
think
call them positive ions for the show.
well, no, 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 listen, negative is actually the
Oh, it's
negative
good.
ions are good. Yeah, it
Yeah.
pulls out the negativity within your body, which actually is a positive, positively charged. It's weird. I don't know why they do that. But then the sun is also going to help build your energetic field and then grounding. So the whole experience, and then the salt also is going to help to build the energy. So it's very healing to be at the beach. And I've been feeling called to the beach a lot lately.
Hey, now who doesn't? We all should start calling for the beach now.
I
If
know
you're
you keep
smart,
posting about him, and I'm like, gosh, is he there? Like, can we
a,
just go and hang out?
a show host took us out in December to Hawaii. First, we went a couple days early to Wailea and then went up to Kanapali. And so this is Maui. And all the angels were telling me to surf and it was a time to regenerate and everything. And I've loved the water since I was a kid, even though I'm in San Antonio. I'm an East Coaster. I got COVID the second or third day that I was there. It dropped like a rock.
Oh no.
I had just the moment to meet my hosts and help two people and get stuff done. And then by the dinner, I dropped. And the next day, I thought I was going to die. But Paxlovid, go see a doctor right away. The doctor was the shiny-eyed person who was like the height of my trip. I'm out, but my other counterpart, she had already been exposed. So she still went on Paxlovid, blah, blah, blah. The point is she was able to hang out at a distance and she never had anything. I'm dying. I just came back a week and a half ago, 2 weeks of running now. Talk about it after the show. But the short of it is that trip for me, it took me out of the picture. Jenny got to hang with everybody instead. And I think that was actually what was the new version of the plan for Hawaii. So I love Hawaii. Can't wait to go back. Here's Joy. Just ask her for a spontaneous exercise or a spontaneous something, or let a pink ball of light go by you. And I wanted to mention, you mentioned feathers before. One of the people I've mentioned today in the show gets, we'll call them electronic feathers. They're not really there, but angels make feathers drop in the middle of their kitchen to slow them down and say, hi, we love you. So I'm going to put that out there as a suggestion. You can have angels bring you a flower. It doesn't have to be sitting on your doorstep. It could be just in the middle of your kitchen and you needed to be slowed down and a reminder to love because you were thinking too hard about a situation, career, a person. You were being down on yourself, not doing love. And the universe says, we love you because you just cracked that door open here to allow for this. So let Joy give you anything you want. Last quick thing from Joy before we go to some Native American chiefs. Let the
she's just giving me healing, and so things are releasing, and that's one thing I wanted to talk about is just when you hold
on. This is Amy's patented method of her way of letting go. There's yeah.
So I do shake like a duck.
Yeah.
I shake like a duck because animals in society or whatever shake when they try to get rid of energy. Dogs will do it too. But we also can do that. So my body just naturally shakes when I'm releasing energy, but I also yawn, which is releasing the unconscious energy that I had that I didn't know about, obviously because it's unconscious. But it's actually then turning on your parasympathetic nervous system.
We're going to learn this phrase by the end of it.
Yeah, you're going to get it.
Here, ask Joy if you can get a touch of Maui on your nose. Now, anyone who is listening, watching, and they want to do this, I'm going to suggest a totally crazy thing. Get out of your chair, wherever you're sitting. Get up and do the hokey pokey turn, do a booty shake, do a Elvis shake, chubby checker. Do something to break your structure so you're like out of what you know. And then I'm going to blow into the microphone, but it's really angels. Let her bring you a little sea spritz on your nose. I brushed my teeth a long time ago. We're good.
Oh.
And Amy is one of the best for, like we said, she's off the charts for sensory.
Yeah.
You don't have to go the whole way Amy goes because she feels it and senses it and does it.
Sorry, my computer dinged and it's on Do Not Disturb. So
I didn't do it.
I don't know why. I hope that didn't get picked up. Sorry.
You're good. Dull knife, Native American chief, wisdom with some humor. Great for practical advice, very down to earth. So much easier than angels to just directly hear. Why don't you get 2 suggestions for 2023 from Dull Knife? And get a beautiful hug. And if you can allow for one of those 40 sacred Native American smells, tobacco, sweetgrass, juniper, sage, pine, desert pinion, Douglas fir, you get the idea.
Pine. That came through. Ooh. Something else came through. That's in my mouth. Oh wow, that was crazy. Okay. That was like a smoky, like you know when you're in front of a fire and then the smoke changes your way and you're like sitting there and you're like, oh, but it was more tobacco-y actually, now that I think about it.
What would you get for 2023?
Hold on a second. I'm gonna have I don't know. I forgot now. Oh yeah, now I remember.
Or just
so what was his name?
Dull Knife.
Dull Knife, yeah. Dull Knife just gave me it's almost like just be in your strength and be in your power, like very aligned, and don't focus on the riffraff kind of stuff. You know, kind of like what Joy was saying, just be here right now. That's where you're strongest.
Nice. The next chief is Red Shirt, Lakota Sioux. He's the gentlest mom in the world, and not give him the coolest tagline, but he is so gentle. Anybody going through a health crisis, relationship issue, divorce, job loss, he's compassion, love, 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 love. Ben Stiller. And if you want to feel a healing hand on your shoulder, or a rattle, a light chant, a light drum beat in the air, anything that's a healing thing, even the cry of a hawk or an eagle in the distance, ask for extra. We'll just call it extra flavor. People can do this, but they might have to allow for a week to go by when they're caught off guard in a moment and they ask for a red-tailed hawk to fly by. Depends where you live, but just ask for the universe, for the chiefs to surprise you. Oh, and I couldn't see you when I had it up, so you're in.
Yeah, I was doing a couple of yawns.
What'd you get?
No, I just was going on the journey with him, like just like feeling like I was in nature and the hawks, like everything you were saying, and then just allowing the healing to happen and the release.
Cool. Last but not least, for three chiefs, Geronimo, Zen master, wily, action loving, action, dry wit, humor, does not BS around.
Does not look like dry humor. Okay, sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, no, Mr. Just do it. You've got this.
He's very methodical, just saying step by step by step. Going upstairs, kind of like that.
And if he was to give you something to put on a t-shirt for you to wear around, that was your mantra, your action statement, what would that be on your t-shirt?
Whistle while you work. Which I kind of like. Just have fun, which is what I said to you, when you asked me to be on the show. I was like, I cannot wait. I just want to have fun with you.
I love it.
And this is technically work, right? I mean, I show up and I play.
And I think
share what
we're over 2 hours now. The last one, the first one that I did,
oh wow,
premiere, I wasn't paying attention, so I panicked because I thought we were at 1 hour and 10 minutes, and I know the guest had told me she kind of had to cap it at an hour, and I cut it, but I didn't realize I cut it at 43 minutes. So hopefully that'll be the only 43-minute one. The whole goal was to let people let loose, talk about what they want to talk about, get a sense for, in this case, Amy Stark Transformation Show. Do your website for us one more time.
starktransformation.com.
Exactly. Now, I always say last angel, but we might have somebody else creep in. I shouldn't say it that way. Pop in. This is Claire, an angel whose resilience, beautiful color, Claire. And we did this before the show, so you already are connecting, but why don't you put a hand out to the side, Amy, if you could, and out to the side somewhere, even off camera is fine. Have her hold your hand, vibe your hand, receive any extra bucket of energy that you want to slap a nice label on, a certain type of energy you'd love to get extra. Suddenly tonight you're cha-cha-chaing in the kitchen. And she is like, what are you doing? You look so happy. I want some of this. I'll have what she's having. That's her, for the audience watching, that's her way of I don't like to use the word processing, but she's experiencing. Not everybody does it that way. And you'll do it, it's goosebumps for you. Or you just go, oh my God. A lot of people do yawn as they're releasing and they're feeling the energy.
Yeah, because for instance, you were talking about, tearing up is turning on the parasympathetic nervous system.
That was awesome. Sorry about the loud noise.
But so really what is keeping me from being in joy in the kitchen, there's something, right? Like because I started yawning, so she was helping to release that so that I can experience it. So she's a healer, I'm a healer. So what we do is we just help people to get out of their space what is in the way of them creating what they want or being the way that they want. With the stories that we tell ourselves, like, can keep us from, maybe I have a story that says I'll look silly if I'm dancing in my own kitchen, so she's going to help me to release that. And that yawning I'm just making that up, but
Uh,
that yawning is me releasing the energy from in my past, where maybe I was made fun of for dancing, or maybe I felt awkward or something like that, or I felt like somebody was watching me and I didn't enjoy it, so what the higher self, the innate intelligence of the body knows what to release and when. And so she's just helping to kick it out.
and for those listening again or watching, there's a little bit of a leap of faith, but again, that leap is religious, non-religious. It's called letting go. That's how I
Mhm.
define a leap,
Yeah.
the faith
Yeah.
part. And so getting from here to here can be decades, lifetimes, multiple lifetimes. All it takes is one messed up situation or a dozen, and you're cooked. You're going to go in circles, patterns. All you have to do is recognize that when you have suffering, pain, smoke, or real fire, that there's something up. And at that point, if you head to an Amy Stark figure, they can help you orient and get pointed to the surface. Let's say you're trapped underwater like a surfer getting ground by a giant wave. You're not getting a breath. At that point, you can get back to life, surfing, and enjoying everything. So back to Hope, the angel. I don't have a photo of her, but I can tell you she's peach colored. If you're gung ho and you've been participating, you caught some sage. You even caught some of Amy's rose spray. You want to spray some right now? Do it. Let the
Sure. Yeah.
audience catch
I want
some.
to see if you can smell it.
Ha! No, I stay out of it. I'm just the bringer. So Hope is peach colored. If your eyes are shut right now, you've bought in, your poker chip stack keeps doubling because you keep winning each round. You're like, 13 red or black, whatever it is on the roulette table, and you win every time here. You're doubling down, you're letting go more, you're experiencing more. Hope is a peach colored light. I mean, angels could be any color, but generally she's peach colored. Close your eyes and see if you can catch a little bit of peach light on your eyelids. Amy, close your eyes and see if you can invite Hope in and catch a little bit of peach colored light. Smell peaches just to add to it. I'm thinking of that song Peaches by that awesome perky band, Quirky. Cake, is it? I think it's Cake. No, it's that other band. So anyhow, let her give you an insight you didn't even ask for that you're like, wow, thank you so much for that. Or she can fill in the rest of the phrase, hope is, and it'll be inspiring for all of us. And for those out there, remember to breathe, breathe, breathe. Unofficial tip, we tend to clench, hold, and expect. Be in your heart, breathe a little. I always suggest a 1 millimeter opening with the mouth, just subconscious. We all close right back up again, so it lasts for 5 seconds. So try to make sure you breathe extra instead of just for the physical once a year. If you need if anything stressful is coming in, exhale like a whale once. Just make yourself laugh, let it go, shift your perspective, get back to your heart. Your heart knows what to do here. That's my pep talk for doing any of these exercises. And if you have been looking at our website, go back to the beginning of this whole long thing. You can lie down and listen to it. But when you get to the interactive parts, come back to your TV, your Samsung, your laptop, whatever you're doing. Don't be driving. And do the angel exercises. Okay, what did Hope give you, Amy?
I don't know. I actually was smelling the rose, and then I thought about how I have to go to the bathroom because I drank a lot.
Well, we can
But here, let me tune in again.
Yeah. Hope the angel, peach colored, very peppy, very light. No, I say that about every angel.
Trust your instincts.
I love it. Okay.
It's true.
How about
I just wanted to say something. For those that are skeptical, here's another way that you can look at this, because again, I was the science teacher, and so I needed to know how this was actually real. And here's a real example of how your nervous system interacts with your body and how you are energy. So in fact, I have a course that's called You Are Energy. And so if you have a headache, let's say, and you take Advil, it's going to take 20 minutes for your body to digest those chemicals and send the signal to all the cells, that it's time to bring down the inflammation, blah, blah, blah. So that's a chemical reaction. An energetic reaction looks like this. Well, he's clearing energy.
Feeling it.
So an energetic reaction looks like this. So you're walking on a path and you're really relaxed. And then this happened to me. And then all of a sudden a snake walks right in, or sorry, slithers right in front of you. And if you're like me, I had childhood programming from my mom that I was afraid of snakes. You know, she was afraid of snakes. She used to run and jump on a chair and stuff like that. So I immediately, in 1 second, my whole body jumps, right? My heart starts racing, my eyes bug out, you know, and I am like halfway down the block or down the path in less than a second. Now, did I consciously even think of any of that stuff? Did I tell myself I need to run away? Maybe slightly, but my whole body reacted. And that's because of one thing, which was I perceived it as a danger and my body tried to keep me safe. And so the signal was sent throughout to save me. That was all sent electronically through my whole body. So like electrically through my whole body. And so I was able to respond and react very quickly. That's how we are energy. All those cells are communicating with each other to keep us safe. And so we have to then tell ourselves that we're safe sometimes, right? So was that snake really going to hurt me? Probably not. Also, snakes represent transformation. So I've learned to like them. And I've also done EFT, which is emotional freedom technique, to get over my fear of snakes. But the point is that, you know, that kind of thing happens very quickly. And it was my neural network that remembered that they were dangerous. And there's a whole lot of things that happen very, very quickly. And it couldn't happen otherwise if it wasn't electrically.
So your body, in a way, is a super highway, and you can do a lot
Hmm.
with it. It doesn't have to be freight trucks, congestion, and traffic. It can actually be a fun journey. You can also send your own vehicles down that highway and do positive stuff. So I'm going to switch this to self-love. There's a movie by Luc Besson, who did The Fifth Element, Joan of Arc, The Professional with Natalie Portman. It's called Angela, or Angel-A. It's black and white, Paris, maybe 2006, 10, 11. They shut down the city. He does a lot of mafia fun. I think he did The Transporter, at least Eurocore, his film company, did Transporter. He's done a lot of action movies and stuff like that. You're never going to miss it. On tons of violence. So this has got, it's a Guardian Angel movie. He had the script forever. And in walked a tall, lanky model you'll know from another famous film, but she wanted to talk to him about a documentary. And he just took one look at her and said, "You're my guardian angel in this movie I want to make." And he got this other figure. And I don't want to say anything about the other figure. You can watch this movie 5 times and not realize something basic, something so glaring about this actor. So if you see the movie Angela, Angel-A, you can find it probably on Amazon once in a while and so on. It's beautiful. But there's little things in it that are incredible. At one point, the guardian angel tells two different life stories when she was a human and what happened to her. And she basically was saying to him, it doesn't matter if you like or feel bad for me in my life story. Are you accepting yours and where you're at? That's the primary thing you have to do. And it's what you said about being here right now. And it's taking stock, and it's allowing for the hiccups where you haven't had your growth yet, but you recognize there's an opportunity where you want to have an opportunity. She also did a mirror scene. You can find this on YouTube and just search it out. His name is André. That's my middle name. And I was doing the best I could in 2010, 11 to roll over in bed at 3:30 in the morning. You might hear those stories of a big kahuna or a kahuna to be in Hawaii getting woken up at 3:30 precisely every morning for 20 years to get instruction from the spirits and the guides. I was like the worst student ever. I'd roll over in bed, go back to sleep. So it'd be another night that they would finally get me up. My cat was a better student, would trot out to the living room. When I did go out, then I would avoid and go to the TV. It would be MTV music videos, which again, an angel would put on a great "Hello, hello, hello, I just came by to say hello" song, Martin Solveig, or a movie. I'd be a sucker for black and white movies. So this one black and white movie, Angela, comes on, and I got riveted because Andre comes up, and that's my middle name. And there's this love scene where the angels got him at Montmartre, the church north part of Paris, and they're in the ladies' room, and they're drying their clothes. It's a long story. But they're looking in the mirror, and the lanky, tall blonde has put the arm over top her ward, Andre, and is trying to show him how to say, "I love you" in the mirror to yourself. But before he gets to do it to himself, she says, "I love you." And he buys into that right away because it's an angel, and it's just so incredible how she says, "I love you." And then she disappears slowly in the scene. And he's left to say, "I love you" to himself. And he starts crying because it's hard for him with everything he's been through to say, I love you. But I love that as an exercise for us. Where are you? Can you even get to the bathroom? Can you look in the mirror? Can you wink at yourself and say, you handsome devil, or you wonderful, gorgeous, hunk of a woman, you, whatever you would say to yourself? How do you love yourself? But can you do it 40 times in a row? And I don't care if you do it 10, 50, you did it yesterday by pure chance. You're that one listener. I'm getting goosebumps everywhere. Can you let go and can you increase your vibe?
Mm-hmm.
And so it's the most beautiful, inspiring scene. Angela, Angel-A. You'll love all the advertising for this movie. Tall, looks like she's 8 feet. He looks like he's only 5 feet. She's leaning in over him. The scene, though, is on YouTube. André, the mirror scene from Angela, Angel-A by Luc Besson. I think you'll really appreciate the music with it is incredible. Pretty famous European artist. And it's a really powerful scene. Can get you choked up. But it's a great instruction for letting go and appreciating yourself. And there's a million versions of self-love. And that's something where, could you leave us with a last bit of self-love? How cultivating your own garden, growing your own flowers. I mean, that's probably a very used, common way of saying it. What do you say about self-love? Obviously, do more of it. But Amy, leave us with a final bit of inspiration. Amy Stark's message about self-love and living more and allowing more.
So I'll talk about that exercise that you just said, where we look in the mirror and we have to say, I love you. You can do that with lots of different things. You can say a lot of different things that you want to believe about yourself by looking in the mirror. And as you say each time those things, what actually is happening is your neural network is getting highlighted in the ways that says, no, I'm not that, and then if you keep at it and you keep loving and accepting yourself, those patterns or those thoughts, that trauma, those, stuck energy will leave. So you'll keep pushing past it. If you stay consistent with it and you keep having this, I love myself, you can even bring in an angel to support you, or God, or a higher power, because it's extremely healing when we do that. I learned that several years ago, that we can go back to our childhood and go back to our personal self as that young child and look that child in the face and say, I love you, you're going to be okay, and bring in that higher power and give yourself the hug that you maybe didn't get when you needed it, or the comfort that you needed when you didn't get it. And that is very healing. So between the two things, those are both ways to heal yourself so that you can then become your greatest self, the greatest expression of who you really are. And that is why we're here. That is why we are here, is to connect with ourselves and others and realize that we are here to be who we truly came to be here as, not the person who other people say you should be this, you should be that, but the person that you really want to be on the inside. I believe that everybody who comes here has a mission. Some are grander than others, but we all have a mission here. And I think that the closer we are to fulfilling that, the more successful we really truly are as a human, in my opinion. So just the becoming of who you really are, and forgetting all of the stuff, or releasing all the things that aren't you, is the only test really that we're here for, is how authentic can you be?
I love it. Wonderful. Wonderful. Is there anything else you want to tell us? Another exercise, anything? Or do you have an event coming up? Are you contemplating a book? What can we look out for from you?
Well, definitely, I'm working on a book. I have actually two of them. They might be combined into one. One's my story of my life, and how I, all my stories, and how I went from science teacher to healer. But then also in a how-to book. So how to get into the parasympathetic nervous system. So I also have Activate that is starting up. It's a membership in February, and it's a time where I'm going to be meeting with people in the membership and helping them to get to the next level. So they'll say, I'm working on activating my wealth, and I'll say, okay, so what's getting in the way? What have you been stumbling on? And we'll go back and forth if that person, asks the question, of course. But the thing about groups that's amazing is that the energy is so strong, and that the believing eyes, if you will, the people all wanting the same thing, transformation, is very healing in of itself. And before I work with a group, I always download what it is that's getting a healing, and it usually always matches up with what is being requested from the group. It's pretty amazing. One of my favorite things to do is to work with a group and watch them transform very quickly, and then they're like, how did that even happen? Like, how did I go from the snowstorm is trying to keep me from becoming my best self, to the only person who ever keeps me from myself, becoming my greatest self, is me. And so that transition is, pretty easy to make once you start tuning into the energy of what is stuck there and releasing it.
To the greatest me is here and now. I'm a rock star.
Right,
I
right.
love you in the mirror.
Yeah, it's so hard to be you, but it really truly is why we're here, is just to become our most authentic self and not care what others think of you. Just come from your heart and live from there. And I've had many tests along the way, coming out of the closet was one of the first times I had to really choose me. And then going from science teacher to healer and telling my friends, hey, this is what I'm doing now. That was really weird and awkward to have
Yeah.
to share that with them. And then, getting a website and being more public about it, and then having a podcast and being more public about that, and just continually coming out as this expression of who I really am, because it feels in alignment with who I am, and I can't not share it, or I can't not be it anymore.
Oh, I like
So
it.
yeah,
I like it.
so Activate is my membership, and my podcast. Definitely go over and listen to all those episodes. There's so many episodes that come out that we still have to categorize some of them, so some of them aren't there. If you're really wanting to understand the brain better, there's 2 podcasts about that, Dr. Amy Apigian and Rachel McLeod talks about it. So, I'm all about figuring out how your brain and your body are working in harmony. There's so much we could have talked about. We didn't talk about EFT. So I teach EFT. I have courses on EFT. And also I talk about a lot about perfectionism, and how very sensitive, energetic people tend to be perfectionists. They tend to be in the fight, flight, freeze, fawn. They're usually the fawn, because when we are people pleasers, we are safe, right? People keep us around because we're doing what they need us to do. And when we are very energetically sensitive, if we don't know how to clear our energy, and we don't know how to have a lot of resilience, which is why I teach the biohacking as well, people can get into our space, and then we can do the thing that they want when we didn't really want to be doing that in the first place. But we feel like we have to do it because it gets so confusing. It's in our space. It feels like ours. But I teach people how to get everybody out of their space so that they become the greatest expression of who they are, not everybody else in their space. And so it's important.
I love it. Well, Amy Stark, thank you very much for being on the show. I know we probably went not
Really
3
long.
hours. We probably went like 2.5.
Close.
Yeah, we did good. This will be one of the longer shows. Thank you everyone for tuning in again. Angels, Positivity, and Love is a podcast about, personal life journeys, select stories with wisdom, for all of us that the person has gleaned, plus talking about their gifts, skills. I certainly think we got a sense for Amy's today. Also, though, the interaction with angels, is there a final anything you'd like to say before bedtime? What would be your advice as a person?
Say what you're grateful for.
Yeah, there you go. So let's
smile more. Don't take yourself so seriously.
Yeah.
It's going to be okay.
Okay, so say the grateful thing one more time. Before bed, they can do what again?
Say what you're grateful for. It'll make you fall asleep very quickly.
I love it. I love it. Well, thank
and
you.
it'll put you off into a very peaceful, deep state of sleep. So you'll feel like everything's going to be okay because you're telling yourself it is.
I love it. And the show's motto, in a way, unofficial motto, but it comes from angels. Positivity is abundance. That'll be my last 2 cents here as the host. Thank you, Amy Stark. We'll ring off. Join us every week on Sunday for a new episode. Many episodes coming. I think I've got 16 guests booked. Thank you very much,
Nice.
everybody.
Thank
Thank
you for having me. This was so much fun.
thank you very much, Amy Stark. Thank you.